The brutal mob of cancel culture has taken many careers in the last 10 years, and music is no exception. In fact, some of the largest stars have lost it all, from losing money and fans.
So he was set to hit the stage in New Orleans Friday night. Promoters, though, scrapped the show because he didn't sell enough tickets.
To getting zero airtime.
We here at Power 106 in Los Angeles decided as a team, as a family, as a unit, to drop Kodak's music.
To getting everything taken away from them.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I can't help 30 years.
Hi, I'm Rashad Bashir, and this is Where They Canceled Artists Now. The first artist on this list is the once famed and beloved R&B singer, R. Kelly. If you're a bit active on social media, then you know just how controversial and sensitive the story truly is. The darkest chapters in R. Kelly's career came with his messy relationship with famous singer and actress, the late and great Aaliyah. It all started when Aaliyah was just 12 years old. You heard that right, 12 years old. She was looking to make her mark in the music world, and her uncle, Barry Hankerson, introduced her to R. Kelly, believing he could mentor her and launch her career. However, little did Barry know that this incident would be something that he would regret for the rest of his life. R. Kelly and Aaliyah quickly began working on her debut album, the ironically titled AJ Nothing But a Number. Maybe R. Kelly named his album like that on purpose. Anyway, at just 14 years old, Aaliyah's talent was undeniable, but the album itself raised eyebrows. Produced entirely by the then 27-year-old R. Kelly, it seemed like a red flag that everyone missed, or worse, ignored. And as their professional relationship grew, their personal dynamic took a darker turn. Disturbing interviews showed the two dressed in matching outfits, but dodging pointed questions about their closeness. Their interviews could be sometimes awkward and weird.
How do you mix with studies and / artists?
It was very hard to intertwine school with the career.
Especially with R. Kelly saying things like,
it's not like we work because we're like really close, so it's like just fun really.
I don't ever remember working.
I mean, in hindsight, people should have known how despicable R. Kelly truly was. When asked about their relationship, their answers were vague at best. They would often reply that they were related or they were just being friends.
Everybody seems to think that y'all are either girlfriend or boyfriend or cousins or let's just get the record straight.
Aaliyah would often sidestep questions about her age, while Kelly bombarded her with comments about her beauty. However, all of this vagueness would be flipped upside down when, in a big and controversial revelation, Vibe magazine shook up not just the music industry but the entire country when they exposed just how messed up the situation was. See, the magazine published their marriage certificate. Aaliyah, just 15 years old, was married to R. Kelly. It later came to light that Kelly bribed someone to falsify Aaliyah's age as 18 on the certificate to make the marriage seem legal. The marriage was done in secret without her parents' consent. Authorities definitely should have locked up Kelly after that. But what was shocking wasn't just the illegal marriage, but the response. The industry didn't condemn him. Instead, it became a punchline, a bizarre story rather than a wake-up call about the grooming and abuse Aaliyah endured. She wasn't seen as a victim. No, she was disgustingly branded as a Lolita or a temptress, absurdly blamed for the actions of a grown man. All of this just showed how disgusting and messed up the outdated views of the world were back then. But there's a silver lining to all of this. Fortunately, their marriage would be annulled by Aaliyah's parents in 1995. However, this disgusting story would have a tragic ending. In August 25th of 2001, news reports shocked the world when they announced the tragic passing of Aaliyah at the age of 22, breaking the hearts of the music world. Looking back, there were clear signs of manipulation. In interviews, Aaliyah mentioned,
I kind of just laid back and let him, kind of take control.
She was a young girl, 14 years old, not even fully matured, unable to grasp the intentions of a man 12 years her senior. He had no business being with her at all. Meanwhile, Kelly's public behavior, from the album title to his comments,
That's how we met, and I sang for him when I first met him.
She's growing. And that's what you have to have for someone like me. Because if you're not glowing in some kind of way, I can't even touch you. And that's what Leah
hinted at his predatory mindset long before his larger abuses came to light. However, this relationship marked the beginning of a pattern for R. Kelly, one in which his fame and influence allowed him to exploit young girls with little consequence.
He had the experience.
Right.
And of course the talent's there, but I learned a lot from him.
See, the fact was that even early on in his career, some people already knew how disgusting R. Kelly was. By the mid-90s, rumors of R. Kelly's devious activities began surfacing.
Is there anything outlandish that we don't know about that you may be getting into?
Oh. Other than music, no.
I don't believe that for 1 minute.
Ain't hard to believe. Isn't that hard to believe?
I think there must be something lurking there.
It was basically a series of unfortunate and sickening events that Kelly perpetuated throughout his reign of terror, starting with the 1996 lawsuit filed by a girl who wasn't 18. This accuser claimed to have been in an intimate relationship with Kelly from the ages 15 to 18. The case was quietly settled, a tactic that would later become a recurring theme in Kelly's legal troubles. And instead of being behind bars, during this time, Kelly's music career flourished with releases like I Believe I Can Fly, making him seem untouchable in the public eye. Later that year, Tiffany Tia Hawkins, an aspiring singer, accused Kelly of beginning a sexual relationship with her when she was just 15, a connection that lasted until she turned 18. Can you see the patterns? Hawkins' lawsuit detailed the emotional toll of the relationship, which even led her to attempt.
The reason why Robert being locked up right now is not really justice for me. It's because we all know Robert didn't do this alone.
Initially seeking $10 million in damages, Kelly settled the suit in 1998 for $250,000. On the other hand, a woman from Los Angeles who came forward years later to speak with the Chicago Sun-Times revealed that she first met R. Kelly in 1999 during the video shoot for If I Could Turn Back the Hands of Time. God, this guy's music was filled with hints at his behavior. But anyways, at the time, she was just 17. Although she maintained that the relationship didn't begin until she turned 18 in 2000, there were still glaring red flags. According to her, Kelly never disclosed that he was married, a revelation that led to significant conflict between them. Reflecting on her experience, she expressed the belief that R. Kelly had a serious problem, a sentiment shared by others who would later come forward.
This is relevant with you with underage girls.
Absolutely no, it's not.
Why?
Because for one, I beat my case.
My stomach is literally churning from this, you couldn't tell. And as if things couldn't possibly get worse, they will. See, another woman who came forward was R. Kelly's former protege, Stephanie Sparkle Edwards, who also shed light on the disturbing dynamics behind the scenes. She revealed that underage girls were often present backstage at his concerts. Her comments were chilling, stating, "He likes the babies, and that's the sickness. He can control her, and she don't know no better." It's wild how it took him years to face justice. The floodgates would slowly open as time went on though. During this period, other people came out to share their stories about the essay from R. Kelly. On November 7th, 2000, the Chicago Sun-Times got an anonymous fax, which would later be confirmed to be Kelly's assistant. What the news outlet didn't show was that this anonymous fax would turn out to be one of the most damning evidence against Kelly. Not only was it an exposition, but it was also a cry for help from a victim. The fax was met by investigative reporter Jim Duragotis, and he recalled the day he received the paper, saying, "An editorial assistant handed me a fax that had been sent to the newsroom. It was one page, single-spaced." But what came next completely shocked the reporter, as the fax said. One minute, he's grabbing his privates and bragging of being a real freak. The next, he's drawing on the gospel roots and once again paying homage to his dear departed mom on the lush and touching single, I Wish. On the other hand, the fax also mentioned a review that Duragotis wrote about Kelly's latest album at the time, TP2.com, since he was actually a fan of the R&B singer. And in the review, he shared R. Kelly's similarity to Marvin Gaye's style of writing music that can be portrayed as sex and prayer, but with the right conditions. However, the fax noted that Kelly's lyrical changes from church to the bedroom were so fast and weird. You wrote about R. Kelly and compared him to Marvin Gaye. Well, I guess Marvin Gaye had problems too, but I don't think they were like Robert's. Robert's problem is young girls. R. Kelly is definitely a monster through and through. The assistant sounded desperate for help, saying, "I've known Robert for many years and I've tried to get him some help, but he just won't do it. So I'm telling you about it, hoping that you or someone at your newspaper will write an article about it, and then Robert will have no choice but to get help and stop hurting people he's hurting." This anonymous tip also claimed that the Chicago Police Crimes Unit had been investigating R. Kelly for a significant period. In response to this, Sun-Times editors assigned reporters to uncover the truth. Ultimately, their investigation confirmed not only the existence of the police inquiry, but also the depth of R. Kelly's entanglements, including the much rumored and brief marriage to Aaliyah. Additionally, they discovered more instances of Kelly's alleged relationships with girls who were not 18. And sit tight, because the rabbit hole into R. Kelly's crimes get worse. By December of 2000, the Chicago Sun-Times published its first major expose on R. Kelly, portraying him as a figure who used his celebrity status to prey on young girls. This investigative work marked the beginning of a public reckoning. However, Kelly would also publicly deny any of these claims in interviews.
Camera on me?
Yes, it's on.
That's stupid. Use your common sense. Don't forget the blogs. Forget how you feel about me.
More and more evidence would pop out and consecutively after this. In 2001, Tracy Sampson, a former intern at Epic Records, filed a lawsuit against R. Kelly, accusing him of coercing her into a sexual relationship when she was 17. Sampson described Kelly as controlling, saying, "He often tried to control every aspect of my life, including who I would see and where I would go." Like many of Kelly's accusers, Sampson eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. At that point, he relied on bribing his victims to get out of trouble, which is really messed up. However, the following year marked a significant escalation in Kelly's controversy. A leaked sex tape allegedly depicting Kelly engaging in explicit acts with a girl who appeared to be not of 18 became a pivotal moment in his career and his eventual downfall. This tape wasn't just scandalous, it was outright criminal. However, this trial dragged on for 6 years, during which Kelly continued to release music and tour, seemingly unaffected by the legal storm. The case centered around a 27-minute videotape, a horrifying piece of evidence that prosecutors claimed showed R. Kelly engaging in unspeakable acts with a 14-year-old girl. As the trial began, 14 jurors sat in stunned silence as the tape was played in court. Witnesses were brought in to confirm its authenticity. However, the key figure, the young girl allegedly in the video, never testified, which was understandable seeing how traumatic it was. Multiple witnesses took the stand asserting that the tape showed Kelly and the underage girl, but the girl and her immediate family, her parents included, adamantly denied it was her. They didn't know this, but their refusal or denial would become crucial. Sadly, after 5 weeks of grueling testimony and just 7.5 hours of deliberation, the verdict was in, and R. Kelly was acquitted of 14 charges, and as the words "not guilty" rang out, he broke into tears, whispering, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus," showing just how demonic Kelly really was. Although it took a while, hope would eventually come for Kelly's victims. Years later, the story behind the victim's silence would emerge. Allegations surfaced claiming that R. Kelly had paid the girl's family a staggering $2 million to stay quiet. This bribe was said to be just one of many. Kelly reportedly spent astronomical sums to keep his accusers silent and to bury years of horrifying accusations. But as reporters surrounded his jurors, confusion set in. Many had previously expressed doubts about Kelly's innocence. What had changed? Well, the jurors revealed their reasoning. While they were convinced the man in the video was R. Kelly, they couldn't agree on the girl's identity. John Petrin, one juror, noted that the photos of the alleged victim didn't match the girl in the tape, saying, "Most of us felt that maybe it was Kelly, maybe not, but nobody could agree if it was her. We had seen photos of her at other times, and she seemed like a young girl. It just seemed like the girl in the tape was much more developed." Fast forward to June, a press conference, led by Cook County State Attorney Richard Devine, announced that the tapes were authenticated by the FBI crime lab, and it turned out the video was real and was not a forgery.
FBI forensics experts from Quantico have closely examined the tape. They tell us it's authentic.
And according to Devine, SA was a scourge on society. This indictment should send a clear message that illicit acts with people who are not 18 will not be tolerated in the community. However, the girl's family wasn't the only one that Kelly bribed. In fact, Kelly would even bribe his own brother, Harry Kelly, to take the fall for the damage of the leaked sex tapes. And this would be a recurring pattern for how Kelly got out of trouble. R. Kelly was willing to send his brother to hell to just continue his disgusting lifestyle. In an interview, Terry recalled the experience, saying, "He was asking me, 'You need to say that was you. Commit a crime pretty much to say that was me on the tape with a person who's not 18. He was saying, 'Man, I'll buy you a car. I'll buy you a record deal. I'll give you $50,000. During the next few years, it looked like R. Kelly was still up to no good. In 2003, Kelly faced an additional 12 counts of charges in Florida, where the authorities found 12 images of a girl who was not 18 on a digital camera during a search of his property.
35 minutes of disgustingness. The girl looked no more than 14 years old. The image that I saw was a man that looked, legally speaking, I've got to be careful, looked like R. Kelly.
R. Kelly would return to Chicago, where he pleaded not guilty and posted bail for $750,000. But if you think this story wouldn't be more disgusting than it is now, you're sadly mistaken. Because after R. Kelly got out, he and his spiritual advisor, Rev. James Meeks, went to a kindergarten graduation ceremony and sang. I mean, I'm almost speechless at this point. A kindergarten graduation ceremony. That's the worst place for someone like Kelly to be in. Of course, seeing that Kelly was dealing with such legal issues related to crimes against people who are not 18, he should have known that this was a violation of a court order mandating him to avoid contact with any children outside of his immediate family. But this is R. Kelly we're talking about. Fortunately though, by the end of his disgusting ordeal, Kelly was arrested on 21 counts of, cannot say that word.
R. Kelly was found not guilty on 14 counts of child pornography after prosecutors in Chicago failed to convince a jury that he was a man seen in a sex tape with a girl as young as 13.
And around this time, his personal life also unraveled. In 2005, Kelly's wife, Andrea, filed for a restraining order and later divorced him due to decades of physical, mental, and sexual abuse.
I am his principal dancer, choreographer, on stage, right next to him. And people have no idea that this man just put me on the bus. People have no idea of the bruises I'm hiding.
Not gonna lie, seeing his downfall in real time must have felt like poetic justice. In an interview with ABC, Drea Kelly finally opened up about her experience in the hands of R. Kelly, and according to her, she felt like she was nowhere safe with Robert.
Did you ever fear for your life?
Yes.
You thought he might kill you?
Yeah.
Your kids?
No. But me, definitely.
According to Andrea, the abuse started as soon as she was pregnant with the first child.
At a certain point, your marriage started going down. When was that point?
When I was pregnant with my first child, he locked me in a bathroom and I slept in a bathtub.
However, what was actually surprising about all of this was that Andrea didn't actually believe the different kinds of weird allegations thrown at R. Kelly.
When the videos surfaced and the allegations surfaced of the child pornography charges, did you believe it?
No, I'm thinking to myself, that's impossible. But again, he kept me very sheltered.
But then again, this could just show how good he is in manipulating people around him, because if Kelly didn't get what he wanted, there would be severe consequences.
There's no let's talk about it like a regular couple, you know? No, it's his way or the highway, period.
Andrea even recalled a time when a small argument led to her being tied down.
Took the rope tight and he tied my arms behind my back. And then he took my legs. And he tied my legs and my hands and arms together.
She even begged for him countlessly to stop.
And I just remember laying on the side of the bed crying like, let me go, just untie me, let me go.
But what did R. Kelly do?
And he fell asleep with me on the side of the bed like an animal.
Only a sociopath like him could do that. However, despite the years of allegations and settlements, Kelly's career persisted well into the 2010s, mainly because cancel culture still didn't have the traction back then that it has now, and the Me Too movement hadn't really taken off either. However, fortunately, the public's perception of him eventually began to shift as more women came forward with accusations. But if you think that things couldn't get any worse, by 2017, allegations surfaced accusing Kelly of running what only could be described as a cult. In 2015, a family's dream quickly turned into their worst nightmare. Jay and Tim, devoted fans of R. Kelly, took their 19-year-old daughter to meet the star after a concert. You can already anticipate how horrible this would go. Their daughter, an aspiring singer, was ecstatic when Kelly promised to help her career. Jay, though, vaguely aware of the misconduct and crazy rumors, believed she could protect her child, especially with her and her husband being present, saying, "In the back of our minds, we were thinking my daughter could be around him if I was with her." It didn't really hit home, even with the Aaliyah situation. Now that I think about it, AJ ain't nothing but a number, but you don't think about that. You grew up with the song, and you like the song. So not only was R. Kelly a P-word, he also engaged in cultish activities. Unfortunately, things didn't really end up how they wanted. What came next can only be described as a horror. Slowly, their daughters became obsessed, disconnected, and over time unreachable. Christmases passed without her coming home. Phone calls were brief and erratic. As they dug deeper, the truth emerged. She was reportedly caught up in what many would describe as a cult run by R. Kelly. The BuzzFeed article that brought these allegations to light shocked the world. It detailed stories from Jay, Tim, their daughter, and other survivors who had escaped. Multiple women came forward, detailing shocking accounts being confirmed in what was essentially a prison.
Part of me is still scared to call it a cult, but that's definitely what it is.
One woman, Kitty, left her job to move into a compound owned by Kelly.
Kitty quit her job and moved into a compound owned by R. Kelly in Chicago. There were other women living there as well, but she says they were forbidden to communicate with each other.
It was a world controlled by R. Kelly.
They lived in separate suites. According to Kitty, it was virtually a prison.
Meanwhile, the public outrage ignited a movement aimed at dismantling Kelly's career. That same year, activists launched the Mute R. Kelly campaign. The two women, inspired by the hashtag #MeToo and Time's Up movements, met in a coffee shop and decided enough was enough. Initially, their goal was to cancel a single concert in their hometown of Atlanta. However, their efforts quickly snowballed. What began as a small protest became an international movement, growing into 15 chapters worldwide. Protesters targeted radio stations, recording studios, and concert venues, demanding accountability. And their determination paid off, with several of Kelly's concerts being cancelled. Yet, there were still hurdles. Getting his label to drop him and platforms like Spotify to remove his music proved challenging. But despite the obstacles, the Mute R. Kelly movement played a pivotal role in bringing attention to Kelly's predatory behavior and holding him accountable. Sadly, it was still not enough to completely stop Kelly. Fortunately, in 2019, the groundbreaking documentary Surviving R. Kelly aired, bringing the accusations into the mainstream.
The docuseries was powerful, and there were so many things that it did well. One of them was centering the stories of the girls and women.
The film amplified the voices of survivors and exposed Kelly's long history of predatory behavior. The exposure led to an avalanche of legal cases against him, which was rightfully deserved. Now, the first episodes of Surviving R. Kelly revisited familiar scandals, like his marriage to Aaliyah and his 2008 CP trial, but the deeper revelations left audiences stunned. See, R. Kelly's childhood was far from ideal. In his 2012 autobiography, Solar Coaster, The Diary of Me, Kelly recounted that their home was often shared with extended family members and friends, including older women. He described being exposed to inappropriate behavior at a young age, and witnessing activity as early as 8 years old. He wrote cousins, aunties, friends of my aunties, all older women. When my mother wasn't around, the woman ran a little freer. As I crept up in age, I found myself more curious and sometimes aroused, and I was ashamed of being aroused. In one particularly disturbing incident, he was even instructed to photograph a couple engaging in certain acts. But even so, that doesn't absolve him of his crimes. Kelly also revealed in his autobiography that he was essayed when he was young. At the age of 8, an older woman repeatedly, can't say anything more, and these traumatic experiences left a deep imprint on Kelly, shaping both his music and his behavior in ways he would reflect on throughout his career.
Anything that I've been through, that or any struggles I've had in my past has affected my music. It has,
Has it affected your behavior?
As a teenager, Kelly faced additional charges. He claimed to have been shot while defending his Huffy bicycle at the age of 13, an incident he said left a bullet permanently lodged in his shoulder. So, was there any truth to this? Well, not really, as Kelly's mother would reveal to a close associate later that this story was fabricated to conceal a attempt. And what's even crazier is that there are reports that he still carries the bullet in his shoulder. Now, regarding the victims, survivors shared testimonies of abuse, manipulation, and control that painted a vivid picture of R. Kelly's so-called cult. The documentary gave voices to the women he silenced and brought humanity to the stories he previously buried under NDAs and legal settlements. One particularly heart-wrenching story was that of Dominique Gardner. Persuaded by Kelly to cut her hair and dress in men's clothing, Dominique lived under his control. Her mother, determined to rescue her daughter, confronted the situation head on. She tracked Dominique down a hotel, met her face to face, and ultimately convinced her to leave. Dominique later described running away as the hardest decision she'd ever made, but it was a necessary step to reclaim her freedom. According to Dominique, her decision was solidified when Kelly refused to give her permission to see her brother's graduation, saying, "I would probably still be here if you would have let me go to see my little brother's graduation. I'd still be there, but when he told me no, I'm like, what is wrong with you?" Fortunately, Dominique had gotten a much needed awakening, but the same can't be said for other victims. You see, Jerhonda Pace's story was equally horrifying. Meeting Kelly at 16 years old, she quickly found herself trapped in this world. She suffered from physical abuse, was isolated from her family, and had her life micromanaged. She managed to talk about her experience in a guest appearance on the talk show The Real Daytime, where she recalled,
"The trainer is a woman, and she trains you to please him sexually. So she trained me for everything that, I was doing."
She would even talk about how frightened she was first time she started training.
I was scared, but cause I was really nervous, and he's like, "Just take your clothes off and she'll teach you everything." And I'm like, okay. So I just went along with whatever he was asking me, but I was very scared, and he picked that up.
Even while living in the same house, Jerhonda and Dominique were kept apart. Their attempts to connect, foiled by Kelly or other women under his control. Eventually, Jerhonda escaped by simply walking out, leaving everything behind. But not everyone was so lucky. The documentary detailed the twisted dynamics of Kelly's household. Women were subjected to what survivors described as training to obey his every command. They needed his permission for basic activities like eating or using the bathroom. Punishments for disobedience ranged from confinement to emotional abuse, such as the silent treatment or denial of food. Survivors described this experience as nothing short of torture. But because the documentary quickly became Lifetime's highest rated series, drawing 1.9 million viewers in its first episode, while some viewers responded with love and support, others showed disdain. And in a disturbing twist, streams of R. Kelly's music spiked after the documentary aired. The surviving R. Kelly series also amplified the efforts of the Meet R. Kelly movement. What had started as a grassroots campaign gained serious traction after the documentary aired. Radio stations stopped playing his music, Spotify muted his songs from playlists, and even his record labels Sony and RCA Records severed ties with them. But that still wasn't enough. Of course, the backlash came with negative side effects. Kelly's increased streams suggested that many were still choosing to celebrate his music, despite knowing the darkness behind the artist. But ultimately, the documentary succeeded in achieving what many, even including some of the victims, thought was actually impossible: holding R. Kelly accountable in the court of public opinion and paving the way for legal action. This wasn't just a moment for the music industry, it was a moment for survivors everywhere. In the aftermath, SA hotlines were flooded with calls, and discussions about abuse gained renewed urgency.
It's extremely affirming to hear another survivor say, "I was assaulted," and it is emboldening, and it is empowering, and it provides hope that someone will hear you.
Shortly after the series aired, R. Kelly was arrested for 10 counts of aggravated SA, when celebrity attorney Michael Avenatti presented new video evidence of him having, In a tweet posted by the attorney, he stated, "I can confirm that we will be providing a second video showing R. Kelly engaged in, can't say that, to prosecutors this morning. This tape was recently uncovered in connection with our ongoing nationwide investigation on behalf of victims. Justice must be done." According to Avenatti, the video is not the same evidence used in Kelly's 2008 trial, when he was cleared on CP charges. CNN, who claimed they saw the tape, said it showed someone who looked like R. Kelly doing stuff with someone who wasn't 18.
Earlier today, we handed over a second videotape to prosecutors. The videotape depicts Mr. Kelly engaged in illegal sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl.
Committing those crimes is one thing, but recording it makes it even more disturbing. And this all came as a shock to R. Kelly, according to his lawyer, Steve Greenberg, who was already planning for the bail.
This all happened on Friday. He wasn't really prepared. He was surprised. Then Saturday, by the time we went to bond court, banks were closed.
However, Kelly was able to make bail a few days later. So you'd think that after 2 decades of controversies and countless women stepping out, Kelly would admit to a couple of these cases. But no, in a surprising twist, Kelly would agree to go in an interview with CBS, sitting down to address the numerous allegations of abuse and misconduct that had surrounded him for decades. The interview became infamous not just for the emotional outbursts, but also for Kelly's attempts to push back against the growing public consensus about his alleged action.
I am surprised that you agreed to do it. Why are you sitting down with us today?
I'm very tired of all of the lies. I've been hearing things and seeing things on the blogs, and I'm just tired.
Kelly began by stating he was fed up with how the world was treating him.
All of them. Got little girls trapped in the basement, helicopters over my house, trying to rescue someone that doesn't need rescuing because they're not in my house, handcuffing people, starving people.
Among the most disturbing claims, he said the rumors about running a cult. He completely denied these accusations, stating,
I have a harem, a cult. I don't even really know what a cult is, but I know I don't have one.
When pressed about whether he had done anything wrong, Kelly admitted to making mistakes in his past relationships, but he insisted he had never broken any laws concerning women.
Lots of things wrong when it comes to women that I apologize, but I apologize in those relationships at the time I was in the relationships.
However, the allegations against him went far beyond a simple relationship mistakes. The surviving R. Kelly documentary, which aired prior to this interview, featured testimonies from 50 individuals, including family members, former colleagues, and women who accused Kelly of controlling, abusive behavior.
If you really look at that documentary, which I'm sure you have,
I have.
Everybody said something bad about me. Nobody said nothing good. They was describing Lucifer.
When asked about the women who accused him, names like Andrea Kelly, Faith Rogers, and Johanna Pace, Kelly maintained that they were lying. According to him, social media played a significant role in creating a false narrative. He argued,
you can start a rumor on a guy like me or a celebrity just like that. All you have to do is push a button on your phone and say, so-and-so did this to me. R. Kelly did this to me.
And the interview would become most notable for its dramatic turning point when Kelly erupted into an emotional rant.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me, y'all. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career.
The audacity of this man, if you could call him one, is insane. Like a true manipulator though, R. Kelly passionately denied holding anyone against their will, calling their accusations against him absurd. He turned directly to the camera, exclaiming,
y'all trying to kill me! You killing me, man! This is not about music! I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it!
His voice grew louder, and his emotions boiled over as he cried out.
I just don't want to believe the truth! You don't want to believe it!
The outburst led to a brief pause in the interview, during which Kelly's publicist attempted to calm him down. Yet his emotions remained as calm as he claimed.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're gonna let the camera keep rolling.
This is not, doesn't even make sense. Why would I hold all these women? Their mothers and fathers told me, we're gonna destroy your career.
The most disgusting part about this interview was the fact that R. Kelly was continuously positioning himself as a victim, insisting that he was being unfairly targeted.
It's real girls out there missing. It's real young girls out there being abducted, okay? They really are on chains. They really do have chains on their wrists.
Kelly would even plead for help, saying,
I need help.
What kind of help?
This is the kind of help I need.
Yes, what kind of help?
I need somebody to help me not have a big heart, because my heart is so big. People betray me, and I keep forgiving them.
The interview marked a defining moment in R. Kelly's public downfall. While he sought to clear his name, the emotional spectacle only added fuel to the fire of public scrutiny. For many, his claims of innocence clashed too sharply with the mountain of allegations and evidence against him. It was an attempt to reclaim his narrative, but for most, it was too little, late.
I'm just telling the truth. And the reason I'm emotional,
Robert,
and I apologize for that, is because this is the first time I was able to say something. I've said nothing.
R. Kelly's legal troubles escalated significantly from there on out. In May of 2019, he faced 11 new sex-related charges in Chicago, followed by federal charges in July, indicting CP and racketeering. Despite pleading not guilty to most charges, Kelly was denied bail multiple times, and by December, after about almost 3 decades, the truth finally came out, and he was charged with bribing to obtain a fake ID for his marriage to Aaliyah back in 1994. Better late than never, as his crimes started to be laid out. It looked like R. Kelly's victims were starting to see justice being served, as it would only get worse in the coming years. For instance, in August of 2020, R. Kelly was given the beats by a fellow inmate. According to the attacker, he was
forced to assault hip-hop and R&B singer R. Kelly in hopes of getting spotlight attention and world news notice to shed light on the government corruption.
In that same year, Kelly's legal team faced new allegations. The following year, federal prosecutors added trafficking charges to his case, and Kelly was found guilty in September of 2021. Now, we don't condone violence, but Kelly's suffering was nothing compared to what his victims went through. Fortunately, in June of 2022, R. Kelly was finally held accountable for his horrific actions. After nearly 10 months of delays, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison, although many argued that he deserved a lot more than 30 years. The sentence came after his conviction for multiple counts related to abuse and exploitation of women, many of whom bravely confronted him after the trial. These survivors spoke out, reclaiming their names and recounting the trauma Kelly inflicted on their lives. One unnamed victim told him, "You made me do things that broke my spirit. I literally wished I would because of how low you made me feel." Despite the sentencing, Kelly's legal battles weren't over. Like the sociopath he was, R. Kelly continued to challenge his conviction in New York while facing another federal trial in Illinois. Trial involved further charges, including the production of CP and alleged conspiracies to corruptly influence his 2008 acquittal. While the survivors' testimonies marked a significant moment in their healing, nothing could undo the damage that Kelly had caused. But this isn't the end of his story, as more legal challenges await him, ensuring his fall from grace continues. Just last year, R. Kelly was given a 20-year prison sentence by a US judge. However, 19 of those years will be served at the same time as the 30-year sentence he already got in New York.
R. Kelly is spending more time in prison after being sentenced federally for child pornography and enticement of minors for sex. He got 20 years in prison today. He will serve all but one of those years simultaneously with a 30-year sentence for racketeering and sex trafficking.
So where's R. Kelly now? 3 decades later, R. Kelly is finally getting punished for racketeering, trafficking, production of CP, and enticement of people who aren't 18. But for Kelly, currently, he's still not giving up. This year, he petitioned the US Supreme Court to overturn his sex crimes convictions based on the statute of limitations. However, in October, the Supreme Court declined this appeal from R. Kelly.
Supreme Court is refusing to hear an appeal from R. Kelly on his federal sex crime convictions. His lawyers argue that a shorter statute of limitations on child sex crime prosecutions should have applied to offenses dating back to the 1990s.
Our next artist to discuss, let's talk about someone who we've all heard of. Kingston was one of the hottest pop stars in the late 2000s with the single Beautiful Girls in 2007. Sean pretty much blew up overnight and took over the music industry globally in an instant. However, as quick as his rise was in the charts, so too was his unfortunate downfall. See, after Beautiful Girls, he was never able to fully recapture the magic that he caught with his debut single, and by the mid-2010s, virtually no one was looking out for Sean Kingston, except for the authorities. And believe me, the story is wild. In 2010, only 3 years after his big break, Sean Kingston would face his first publicized lawsuit in the form of an SA charge. According to reports, a woman was invited to the singer's hotel room after they met at his concert. Little did she know that something bad was looming behind this gesture. Apparently, when she arrived, Kingston was apparently waiting naked on his bed. However, there was a problem with her accounts which Kingston himself would take advantage of. According to the article, she also claimed that she was already inebriated when she got there. And this is where things go from bad to worse. Because when she came to the room, Kingston's bodyguard put her on top of the singer before all 3 men in the room proceeded to do sexual acts to her while she was obviously intoxicated and incapable of consent. After this horrifying incident, the victim's friend later arrived at the hotel and called the police after realizing her friend had been assaulted. She was also sent to the hospital to be treated. Apparently, the victim wanted to get paid $5 million for this case, claiming that the assault had left her with severe emotional trauma, which has also caused her to suffer from mood swings, insomnia, and panic attacks. In response to this case, Sean Kingston admitted to having slept with the woman but he maintained that everything they did was consensual. And the glaring detail behind this accusation was that the medical reports also showed no signs of force. So, due to a lack of evidence, this case was dropped in the same year it was filed. However, the woman filed the lawsuit again in 2013, claiming they had more evidence this time. While Kingston continued to maintain his innocence, he decided to do something that added more controversy to an already chaotic story. Kingston settled the matter out of court, although it's unknown how much he ended up paying. As for why he settled, sources said that Kingston was very confident that were the case to go to trial, he would have proved it easily in court. And this is where it got ridiculous. As a sign of complete neglect for the severity of the accusations and of the case in general, among the reasons why Kingston also settled out of court was that he had a new album and a tour to worry about and simply didn't have the time for legal matters. Now, this incident didn't really do much to tarnish Kingston's name due to the case lacking concrete evidence. However, it was still a pretty impactful moment in the young artist's career, being that it was an essay case, which definitely made some people raise their eyebrows. So, while the lawsuit was slightly damaging for Kingston's reputation, even though nothing was truly proven, there was a slightly less serious but still damaging aspect that Kingston got embarrassingly called out for, and that was him being blatantly caught fake flexing certain items. One example of this was when Kingston was seen pulling up to Boa Steakhouse with a girl in a $100,000 chrome Fisker car. However, the shameful part about the story was that the fans actually knew that this vehicle wasn't Kingston's. In fact, fans knew that this car was actually the gift that Scooter Braun gave to Justin Bieber for his 18th birthday. But the secondhand embarrassment did not stop there. See, when Kingston was asked why he had the vehicle, he said this.
I'm gonna be honest, I got it as a gift, man.
And where this all got extremely awkward was when Kingston claimed that Justin and him were actually best friends.
You know, when you best friends, then when you best friends with one of the biggest artists in the world, you know what I'm saying? You get all different type of gifts, you know?
But that's not all, because this is when it all fell apart for Kingston. After the clip of him went viral, someone from Justin's team immediately cleared the air and refuted everything Kingston said. Apparently, what happened was, Kingston asked Justin if he could borrow the car for a night while he was on tour, and he definitely did not give it to him. A person on Justin's team also said that Kingston had already returned the vehicle after that night. In response, those in Kingston's team claimed that he was only joking about the whole thing, but in truth, it looks like they were just backpedaling after their artist's embarrassing lie got caught. So, on top of perhaps never being able to claim that Justin Bieber is your best friend, the worst Kingston got out of that was scrutiny and humiliation. However, the same can't be said when he got sued by a jeweler. You see, in a 2014 lawsuit filed by a jeweler named Avi Davidov, accounts stated that Kingston had received more than $200,000 worth of jewelry from Avi from 2008 to 2013, which Kingston did not pay. Apparently, Avi claimed that Kingston had sent him 7 checks throughout the time, but all of them had bounced, and it gets worse. The jeweler said that the orders that have been delivered to Kingston over the years include watches, chains, 2 of which were custom made with his initials, a diamond, Jesus piece, a belly button chain, which we hope is a gift he gave to someone else, kidding, I don't judge, a bracelet, and a cubic zirconia necklace. Kingston also apparently rented a $12,000 ring for a TV appearance, which he never returned. And all in all, Kingston owed the jeweler $226,000. He also asked for an additional $1 million in punitive damages. Come on, Sean. Seriously? In response to the lawsuit, someone from Kingston's team told TMZ Mr. Kingston has paid Avi the jeweler well over $300,000 for jewelry that was appraised for far less than that and has cashed the checks to prove it. Kingston's team even doubled down on the denial of their accusations. Additionally, no one would continue to supply jewelry to another individual for 5 years without ever receiving payment. Mr. Kingston fully intends to fight this lawsuit in the court of law. However, regarding the second half of the comment from Kingston's team, Avi told reporters that he continued to do business with Kingston despite his years of non-payment because of their personal and close relationship, and that he only sued because he got fed up after Kingston's continued non-payment. Eventually, when things went to court in 2015, Kingston was ordered by a judge to pay Avi $356,000. And to give credit to Avi, he went through the proper due process and dealt with Kingston legally, because that is not what happened when Sean Kingston had an issue with another jeweler in 2015. According to Kingston, he bought a $225,000 watch from a shop called Avion Jewelers, and when the two disputed over payments, representatives of the jewelers allegedly kidnapped him.
That Sean Kingston says he was kidnapped, and it was all over a very expensive watch.
And the police, by the way, are investigating a kidnapping.
Of course they are, because when you hear this story, how could they not investigate?
So the dispute stemmed from Kingston's failure to pay after making a deposit of $185,000 for the $225,000 watch. Kingston refused to pay the rest of the amount because he believed the watch wasn't worth it anymore, which was a ridiculous thing to say. And apparently, to address the issue of payment, Kingston and Avion Jewelers settled on a trade. Kingston would return the watch, and the jeweler would replace it with another that was worth the amount Kingston deposited. So, did that finally fix the issue? Well, after that agreement, Kingston and an Avion representative met in a parking lot in downtown LA at 1:50 in the morning, which was obviously a sketchy sounding deal. But that's not all, because allegedly, when Kingston entered the representative's car, the jeweler took his watch and refused to give a less expensive one, which of course angered Kingston and led to an argument. And here's where the situation got horribly worse. Now, for the crazy part. The jeweler, who was with the crew, apparently locked the car and drove off while Kingston was still inside, which, if you don't get it, they kidnapped him. They then drove him to a remote area and dropped him off there. Now, if this were true, then that obviously constitutes kidnapping, right? Kingston thought so, which is why he called the cops immediately, prompting an investigation. Additionally, Kingston also took to social media to express his dissatisfaction towards Avion Jewelers, saying, "Never trust Avion Jewelers, period, shady business, God never misses anything, so we will leave this in his hands, but just know, karma." And while if you thought Kingston's story was crazy, far-fetched, sketchy, or literally unbelievable, the LAPD thought so as well. After the investigation ended, the police threw Kingston's case out the window, stating Kingston's story to be unclear and that the matter was just a simple business disagreement. Unfortunately for Kingston, even the general public was not having any of his stories, accusing Kingston of simply not being able to pay for his jewelry again, much like the incident with Avi the jeweler. And this is why you should always keep a good reputation. But that wasn't the only time Kingston got in trouble with the jeweler though, because 4 years after the Avi the jeweler sued him, he would be sued again by another jeweler named Aquamaster, this time for apparently writing $301,500 worth of bounced checks. I mean, at this point, it simply became a pattern. According to court records, among the items Kingston picked up from Aquamaster included 2 watches containing a total of 46 carats of diamonds, a chain with 99 carats of diamonds, 2 diamond tennis necklaces, and 2 yellow gold chains. And this sleazy pattern would continue throughout his career. In fact, just recently in 2023, Sean Kingston would once again be sued by a Malaysian-based luxury watch company called Dream Watch for almost $1 million for refusing to pay up on a bill. I mean, at some point, maybe the jewelers need to do some investigation before doing any transactions with Sean Kingston, but that's just a suggestion. Anyways, according to Dream Watch, Kingston purchased 2 watches from them, a Richard Mille modeled RM 65.01 automatic for a little over $500,000, and a Patek Philippe Calibre for $378,000. After an agreement was reached, a Dream Watch representative flew from Malaysia to Kingston's home to personally deliver the watches, totaling to over $912,000, which Kingston was expected to pay upfront after receiving the delivery. However, the transaction went unexpectedly sour immediately. When the rep and Kingston met, the artist apparently inspected the watches, expressed satisfaction, and agreed to purchase them for the prices set forth above. Kingston took possession of the watches and promised to send payment via wire transfer. So far, so good, right? But where this entire ordeal went south was the fact that Kingston never sent payment via wire transfer. The matter of fact was that while Kingston did send payment, it was rejected and got flagged by his bank due to the large amount being wired overseas. He said that his account was frozen after this, which prevented him from paying. Leave it to Sean Kingston to come up with different types of excuses for not paying up. After that, Kingston and the company allegedly kept in touch for 3 months after the initial failed transfer. After this, Kingston stopped replying to the company completely, prompting them to file a lawsuit. But jewelry wouldn't be the only thing that gave Sean Kingston legal troubles, because in 2020, Kingston caused quite a ruckus at Dino's Chicken and Burgers in LA. An eyewitness said that Sean's car was blocking the exit in the parking lot so no one could leave for some reason, and that pissed off some patrons. But that wasn't the end of it. The eyewitnesses went on to say that Sean himself got angry and began throwing ice cubes in the glass windows of the restaurant, which created a loud noise. It might have even broke some glass. After this, someone called the LAPD saying that a guy was going berserk at the establishment and that he was carrying a gun, and that guy was obviously Sean. So when the police arrived, they cuffed Sean immediately, led him to a police car, and questioned him. However, the person who reported that Kingston was carrying a gun was either lying or just mistaken, because the cops found no weapons on the singer. He was released shortly after, due to nobody's fault but his own. So it seems like Sean just couldn't catch a break, because just a year later, Sean would be involved in another incident, this time with his video producer. In November of 2021, an LA music video director named GXD Like filed a police report against Kingston for assault. According to the director, he had been living with Kingston for 3 months at his LA home so he could shoot music videos and vlogs for the artist. The situation got wild. The story went like this. On November 5th, 2021, at around 2 a.m. in the morning, Sean called on the director because he wanted him to film something. But GXD Like said the phone was dead, so he had to grab his camera. And this is where the baffling part of the story comes in, because somehow when the director failed to name the app they used to transfer files, Sean apparently got frustrated and punched him in the face. So Sean Kingston has some serious anger management issues, allegedly, that's putting it lightly. The director then alleged that Kingston continued to abuse him. According to GXD Like, after he got punched, Kingston dragged him into the hallway and pulled out a gun on him, and after that, Kingston kicked him out. It seems like a massive over-exaggeration, but alright. The director then said that although he suffered no major injuries from this incident, the attack did leave him with some cuts on his face. In response, Kingston's team said all claims will be disproven in time. When that time is, no one knows, as that's all we've heard regarding this matter. And you probably don't know this, but he also tried to revive his dead music career. While all we've heard from Sean Kingston since the early 2010s has been controversies and lawsuits, he did try to make a music comeback in 2022 when he released his fourth studio album, Road to Deliverance. Unfortunately for Kingston, it barely made any waves. It didn't crack the charts, and it had very low streaming numbers and view counts for an artist of his caliber. To say that the album was a flop was an understatement. No one noticed he released new music, except for a select few of his dedicated fans, and it failed to resurrect his career, even though he hyped it up so much on his YouTube channel and social media accounts. I mean, I'm sure you didn't even know he released new music before this video, right? However, just a year later, Sean Kingston's name would be back on the map, but not for the reasons he wanted or ever expected.
New tonight, rapper Sean Kingston is under arrest, facing fraud and theft charges. The singer was taken into custody near Fort Irwin, an Army base in a remote part of San Bernardino County.
What came unsurprisingly for many that have been following Sean's career was that he would be again involved in another scam lawsuit. And what's worse is that Sean Kingston's mother was also arrested.
This comes hours after a SWAT team raided his rented South Florida mansion and arrested his mother.
But where this all goes into that weird and wild territory is when you discover just why Sean and his mom were arrested.
An attorney says the arrest is in part related to a lawsuit accusing Kingston of defrauding a company that installed a giant television in his home.
According to reports, Kingston had failed to pay the company who installed the giant TV, and it would all come crashing down on him in May of 2024. After being retrieved by a SWAT team, Sean Kingston and his mother, Janice Turner, were both charged with fraud, and the wild part was that Sean was hit with 10 counts of fraud while his mother was hit with 8 charges. Scamming others is one thing, but getting your mom involved is wild. However, in the hours between Janice Turner and Sean Kingston being arrested, he took to Instagram to explain the situation and calm his fans down, saying, "People love negative energy. I am good, and so is my mother. My lawyers are handling everything as we speak." But the truth was that Sean wasn't good, and neither was his mother. In fact, they were far from it. This massive civil lawsuit accused both Kingston and his mother of carrying out an organized scheme to defraud a variety of businesses. This all started when a company called Verver Entertainment sued Kingston back in February for, guessed it, not paying something he was supposed to. Maybe Sean Kingston gets a high out of not paying what he owes, who knows? According to the suit, Kingston didn't pay the majority of a $150,000 bill he owed the company for the installation of a massive 232-inch television and accompanying sound system. Remember when Kingston lied about Justin Bieber giving him a car? Well, apparently, Kingston has been using Bieber's name in private transactions ever since, because Kingston allegedly told the company that if they gave him a low down payment and credit, he and Justin Bieber would record a commercial for them. Take note, the last time Justin Bieber and Sean Kingston collaborated was in 2010, which was far over a decade ago. Obviously, these commercials never happened. On top of that, Kingston never paid his remaining balance, which was $120,000. And allegedly, this wasn't the only time Sean Kingston used Justin Bieber's name to get away with things like that.
He's got basically a script. He says that he works with Justin Bieber and that he obviously puts on a big show here. This is a rental house. He doesn't own it. And he lures people using his celebrity into having them release things without him paying for it, and then he simply never pays.
But what about Justin? Well, Justin Bieber doesn't seem to know anything about this. According to the representative, he had a misfortune of doing some work and then passed with Sean, and Sean drops his name like crazy, the Dennis Cart, the company's attorney. But that wasn't all. It gets worse, because aside from that 232-inch TV that Sean did not pay for, Kingston also got $86,000 worth of furniture, a $159,000 Cadillac Escalade, and over $480,000 worth of jewelry, all of which he did not pay for. Not only that, it was also reported that Kingston's mother also apparently tried to use someone else's identity to take $200,000 from Bank of America and $100,000 from the First Republic Bank. Oh, and all those bounce checks Kingston kept sending, yeah, that came back and bit him hard since he was charged for those as well. And finally, in July, 2 months after they were arrested by the police, a federal grand jury in Miami charged rapper Sean Kingston and his mother with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 5 counts of wire fraud. Although both Kingston and his mother were released on bond, if convicted, both could face up to 20 years in prison. This matter is still an open case as of now. So if you were wondering where Sean Kingston is now, the best bet is at home, working with his lawyers, doing their best to get him out of a 20-year sentence. The next rapper we're going to be talking about is someone who is known to be more in the industry for his controversies than his music, namely Kodak Black. Kodak's career rose fast, to the point that he even got co-signed by Drake just 2 years after releasing his first mixtape. However, his imminent downfall slowly came as soon as he got big, starting with an SA case charged against him in 2016.
In February of 2016, Kodak Black was accused of raping a teenage girl in a Florence Comfort Inn and Suites hotel room following his performance at the Treasure City nightclub.
Keep this in mind because SA cases would haunt Kodak for the rest of his career. But the horrors of this case didn't just stop there, as personal statements from the victim herself would paint a much more gruesome scene. Allegedly, Kodak didn't just stay her, he also left. I can't even say that on YouTube. It was bad. However, what sparked even more confusion to the public was the fact that this case did very little to affect Kodak's reputation, especially with how serious this incident truly was. In fact, it took 5 years before the case really amounted to anything, because during that entire 5 years, Kodak was able to maintain a prosperous career even despite his multiple stints in prison for entirely different reasons, which we'll get to later on.
The 23-year-old rapper agreed to plead guilty to first-degree assault and battery in exchange for 18 months of probation in a court hearing on Thursday, April 28th.
See, 5 years after Kodak's SA case, he eventually entered a plea deal with the court. This, of course, caused the uproar on social media and in the community as people were outraged at how light Kodak's sentence was. Following the deal, Kodak went on Twitter to address his detractors, saying things such as, "Ain't gotta register as an offender," or "None, that's a play if you ask me, y'all got me upped. I ain't freaky, homie. Y'all be the one to go outside, homie. Wishing bad on real. I never seen it work. My heart goes out to all the girls out there getting for real, but I ain't did that." So at the end of this serious ordeal, Kodak only had to undergo probation. And while the case never proved that he outright essayed the victim, it was extremely surprising that many of his fans continued to defend him like that, despite him actually pleading guilty to assault and battery. After all, it's hard to separate the art from the artist when it comes to allegations as serious as this. On top of the legal issues Kodak had to deal with, another factor that damaged Kodak's image was his ego. The fact was that Kodak Black was once considered as one of the biggest rappers in the industry during the height of his career, which would of course inflate his ego. However, this overinflated self-esteem would lead him to collide with his peers, some of which were his equals and some who were virtually above him. See, in 2016, Kodak was included in the XXL freshman class alongside some of today's biggest rappers: 21 Savage, Anderson .Paak, Dave East, Denzel Curry, Designer, G Herbo, Lil Dicky, Lil Uzi Vert, and Lil Yachty. This class showcased the biggest rising stars in hip-hop at the time, and of course, every single one of them more or less earned their place in that class. However, for some reason, Kodak had surprising fighting words for some of his XXL classmates. In a live video, Kodak had some announcements regarding his music.
I got some more albums coming out.
But this live stream would immediately go sideways.
I am not like the other. I don't even listen to Uzi.
Out of nowhere, despite a seemingly cordial encounter with Uzi during their infamous XXL freshman cypher, Kodak would go off on him, throwing out some wild accusations.
Thinking the booty. They confusing the community.
So that's not all, because even Yachty received some strays.
I don't even listen to Yachty. They ain't gonna be dropping no knowledge.
Kodak basically implied that he did not mess with Uzi at all because of his sexual orientation, and that Yachty didn't drop any new knowledge for him, both of which were some extremely ridiculous claims. But despite the volatility, nothing really came out of it. Lil Yachty never made any response towards Kodak, and in the case of Uzi, he just remained positive and unbothered, even giving out a classy response, saying, "How I feel about Kodak? That's one of my classmates from the XXL freshman list. I fuck with Kodak." So Kodak's comments did stir the hip-hop community for a little bit there, but it's nothing compared to the other things that really put a stain on his career, and he had nobody to blame but himself. But as we've mentioned, the most damaging issues to Kodak's career, livelihood, and image was the numerous crimes and legal issues that he constantly dealt with. See, the 2016 SA case wasn't the only legal case that Kodak dealt with in his life. Even before Kodak became famous, he couldn't really stay away from trouble. In fact, during his teenage years, he got sent to a youth detention center 3 times in just 1 year. But after his stint in juvie, Kodak never seemed to learn his lesson, because in 2015, after becoming of legal age, an 18-year-old Kodak got arrested for robbery, battery, false imprisonment of a child, and possession of marijuana. He was also held at Broward County in his hometown of Pompano Beach. And while he was released on bond shortly after that, he got arrested 2 months later for, once again, marijuana possession. Kodak also had to deal with more legal troubles the year after, and I'm not just talking about the SA case we already covered, so buckle up because this one's gonna be a journey. Starting in 2015, the year Kodak got co-signed by Drake. In April of that year, a police officer witnessed Kodak buying marijuana from a dealer before leaving his car. When the police officer attempted to pull him over, Kodak hit the gas, causing a chase to ensue. During the chase, Kodak apparently threw the gun from his car. The police eventually caught on to Kodak, and he was charged with a slew of charges, including possession of a weapon by a convicted felon, possession of cannabis, and fleeing from officers. Just like his prior arrests, Kodak was able to get out of jail on bond. But his next arrest wouldn't be so generous because just a month after his previous arrest, Kodak was arrested once again. This arrest would be in relation to the armed robbery and false imprisonment that was charged on him a year prior. In August of 2016, Kodak Black appeared before court where he pleaded no contest to a couple of charges, including false imprisonment, robbery without a weapon, operating a vehicle without a viable license, and possession of marijuana. Damn, that's a lot. And under the plea agreement, Kodak would be placed under house arrest for a year, be on probation for 5 years, perform community service, and take anger management classes. But that's just the start of it. Before he could even be released from jail, the police discovered that Kodak still had 2 outstanding warrants preventing his release. Once again, he pleaded guilty to these charges a month later, and the court sentenced him to 4 months in jail. Then in November, Kodak was extracted from the St. Lucie County Jail to South Carolina to face the second charge. And finally, in December of that year, Kodak was released after posting a $100,000 bond, later taking to Instagram acknowledging his freedom, saying, "I'm finally to be going back home, my family and friends. I look forward to clearing my name in the near future." He also released a track a few days after called "There He Go," with lyrics acknowledging his then recent stint in jail, with the lines, "Just hopped off the plane, I just got about a day to go, everybody love me, when they see me they be like, there he go." And while you'd think that just after all of that, Kodak would finally learn to lay low for a bit, focus on his music career, and go on an unproblematic run, it seemed like Kodak could never truly leave his dangerous lifestyle behind. Because to no one's surprise, just 2 months after he was released, Kodak was arrested yet again for violating the probation of a strong armed robbery, false imprisonment, possession of a firearm by a delinquent, and fleeing or eluding law enforcement charges from a year earlier. According to the warrant of Kodak's arrest, he violated probation by being at places he was not supposed to go. See, although Kodak was released from prison, his probation required him to remain in his residence unless he was doing public service work and any other special activities that must be approved by his probation officer. Having said that, Kodak went to a strip club in Miami called Club Lex and to Adrian Broner's boxing match in Cincinnati, Ohio, both of which were never approved by his probation officer. Is it really that hard to follow your probation rules? Kodak would be held once again without bond. And that's not all. Remember that anger management class Kodak was required to take? Well, you can add that to Kodak's violation list because he never completed that. But Kodak did eventually attend his anger management classes in February. The problem was he did not see eye to eye with his counselor at all, the opposite of what anger management was supposed to achieve. According to Ramona Sanchez, Kodak's counselor, Kodak kept intentionally disrupting the session by repeatedly burping, classic Kodak. And when the counselor asked him to leave, Kodak refused, so she threatened to call 911 if he stayed. But instead of leaving, Kodak responded by grabbing her phone and her wrist, which only proved how much he needed to undergo anger management classes. Following that, Kodak was required to participate in an individual therapy instead of group therapy, so he could no longer disrupt other people's court-mandated anger management sessions. But there was some good news. In June of that year, Kodak was finally released from jail. However, he would remain on house arrest for 1 year.
Served 97 days of a 364-day sentence, and that was for violating house arrest. So now he's back on house arrest for another year.
10 days after Kodak's release, he released a track called First Day Out, celebrating his freedom yet again. And to Kodak's credit, he did manage to stay away from trouble the rest of the year. He kept making and releasing music and kept his nose away from legal troubles. That is until 2018. Because with the new year came new legal problems for Kodak. He couldn't even wait for the festive feelings to pass because in just the first month of that year, the police arrested him in his Florida home on multiple charges, which included child neglect, grand theft of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and marijuana possession. See, a few days before, Kodak went on Instagram Live and he simply could not help himself because during that Instagram Live, Kodak was caught in 4K passing around marijuana and a handgun while his infant child was near him. Christ, damn, Father of the Year candidate right there. 3 months after getting arrested, he was sentenced to a year in jail and got credit for time served while awaiting trial. He was released once again in August of the year. Now, following this release, it seemed like Kodak was ready to turn his life around. I mean, he could have done this sooner, but it is what it is.
Kodak Black made some major changes while he was in jail.
In Kodak's case, one of the first things he thought could help him was to take his spirituality seriously. Apparently, while in incarceration, Kodak began to identify as a Hebrew Israelite after studying scriptures with a priest who conducted prison ministry. With this, Kodak decided to change his name from Dyson Octave to Bill K. Capri.
He is changing his name, and it's legal and all of that. His name is now Bill K. Capri.
And not only that, to further help himself progress his change, and Kodak even got educated.
He earned his General Equivalency Diploma, or GED.
And what really seemed to solidify his oath to change was the fact that he tried to put his family first.
He says that his first stop now that he's a free man is to go to his mother's house so he can see his son.
His probation was also dropped shortly after he was released from prison, which gave him more freedom than before. Thanks to these, Kodak was able to release more music and collaborated with the likes of Gucci Mane, Bruno Mars, Travis Scott, and Offset. But if you're at least a bit skeptical about this whole change, you're unfortunately right.
Well, this morning, rapper Kodak Black has been arrested in Miami-Dade County on weapons charges.
Because if there's anything we know about Kodak, from looking at his behavioral pattern, it's that he just can't seem to rid himself of his old habits. Even though he changed his name, he's still stuck to his old ways. So it seemed like his oath to change his life was nothing but true. Even the official name change didn't actually change anything, which Charlemagne from The Breakfast Club would point out.
And now his name is Bill.
It's not about changing your name, it's about changing your lifestyle, Kodak Black. It's about changing your behavior. It's about changing the people around you. That's what's going to keep you out of jail.
And I could not agree more. Sadly, Kodak never got this message because apparently a month prior to his arrest at Rolling Loud, Kodak was also arrested after the US Customs found that he was carrying a Glock 9mm pistol and marijuana while flying to Canada from New York. And while he was able to post bail to get out of that one, the Rolling Loud arrest would be a bit more complicated for Kodak to navigate. See, the authorities arrested Kodak for apparently lying on official government form regarding a firearm that he had purchased in January of that year, which is a huge problem. Kodak pleaded not guilty to all charges. The judge granted him release on a $550,000 bond, and Kodak offered up to $600,000 of his home in Florida as collateral. However, the prosecutor argued against Kodak's release, fearing that he would eventually flee, pointing to his prior disregard of probation restriction, and they had a point. The prosecutors also suggested that Kodak was a danger to society, saying, wherever he goes, there's going to be guns, drugs, shootings, which was a bit prejudiced. And 6 months after Kodak's arrest at Rolling Loud, this happened.
South Florida rapper learned his fate on federal weapons charges. Today, a judge sentenced Kodak Black to 46 months in prison.
Kodak withdrew his initial plea and pleaded guilty to the federal weapons charge, admitting that he did give false information in connection with the weapon that he purchased in January of the year. But unfortunately for Kodak, out of all of his arrests thus far, this was by far the worst experience for him. Apparently, the prison staff, Big Sandy, restrained Kodak for hours and constantly gave him the beats. The Bureau of Prisons argued that the reason why the prison staff had to restrain Kodak was because he was being violent towards guards. Now, this is where things really got weird, because in January of 2021, just 20 months after his arrest at Rolling Loud, then President Donald Trump pardoned Kodak as part of his last-minute spree to waive clemency before the end of his term, significantly reducing Kodak's sentence. This of course caused extreme controversy not just in the hip-hop community but also the entire US, given just how politically severe this move was. To justify the pardon, Trump's press team pointed out the rapper's charitable donations in the past for ending his term early. This obviously further created some dents in Kodak's career when you think about how contrary his association to Trump really was. Trump's pardon granted Kodak with a short breath of relief before he had to deal with the SA case from 2016. And for the rest of 2021, Kodak actually managed to stay away from trouble, except for a minor hiccup where he failed a drug test in the middle of that year, but that's minor compared to his rap sheet. And you guessed it, Kodak did not learn his lesson. In fact, in 2022, Kodak immediately went back to his old habits. Exactly on the first day of 2022, that's right, on New Year's Day, Kodak celebrated by trespassing. Mind you, he didn't just trespass any place. This complex was an area he had been banned from entering. Of course, this misdemeanor trespassing charge landed him another stint in jail. Thankfully for him, he was able to get out of jail on bond, and the charge was dropped 19 days later. Now, while that was only a minor misdemeanor charge, that also wasn't Kodak's only run-in with the law in 2022. And I don't think anyone was even surprised by this, because in July of that year, Kodak was stopped by Florida Highway Patrol after the police ran the plates on Kodak's vehicle and found that his registration was expired. But as if you think things couldn't get worse, this is Kodak we're talking about. As they were inspecting Kodak's vehicle, the troopers smelled a strong marijuana smell from the car and found him carrying 31 oxycodone pills. Now, while Kodak wasn't arrested from this, he was placed on house arrest for an unspecified amount of time. He was also required to participate in regular drug testing. Once again, things got a bit quiet for Kodak for the rest of 2022 and for almost the entirety of 2023. Except for a minor infraction that occurred in February of 2023 when he got in trouble for failing to show up to a regular drug test. And once the authorities finally got him to do one, the test came out positive for fentanyl, which led him to participate in a court-mandated rehab. But in an unsurprising twist of events, Kodak Black not wanting 2023 to end without a bang, he got into more trouble. Because in December, a crowd of people reported to have seen a passed out Kodak Black in his parked Bentley. But this wasn't just a drunken night. The problem was that his car actually blocked traffic in the middle of the night.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, police say they found rapper Kodak Black behind the wheel of a Bentley, sound asleep.
But it gets worse. Initially, the officers thought Kodak might have been intoxicating here, judging from his state, as well as the smell of weed and alcohol that was emanating out of the vehicle when they opened the door. However, they found something much more than just pot.
Officers say when they opened the door to the vehicle, they smelled pot and alcohol. And after they got him to come out of the SUV, they reportedly noticed a white powder coming from his mouth.
That's not all. Kodak apparently tested positive for cocaine. According to the cops, the rapper apparently swallowed a mouthful of cocaine in the arrest. They also found a clear baggie with a small amount of substance in his left pocket. Kodak claimed it was perks. His attorney, on the other hand, argued to the court that Kodak was only under painkillers at the time, which were prescribed to him. While the charges were dropped, he was detained for 2 months. And remember that time Kodak had to take anger management classes? Well, that comes into play in the next moment. See, Kodak was eventually released in February 2024, and when he got released, he was greeted by a local reporter. For some reason, their presence angered Kodak, and he started hurling rocks at them.
Don't throw anything at our camera. Don't throw anything at our camera.
So much for anger management. The reporter claimed that Kodak also threatened to punch him.
And there's Kodak Black, and the first thing, I was alone without a photographer. He threatened to punch me.
However, it was also obvious that the reports were actually provoking Kodak like the typical vultures that they were. Now, asked to why Kodak immediately started throwing rocks, he told them, "That's when you wake the Kodak bear up. I've been hibernating, chillin' bro," which was understandable to some degree. But the sad part about all of this is that Kodak's problems with substance abuse, his anger issues, and his run-ins with the law have all been well documented and highly publicized, which have only added more damage to his image. His actions and reactions have all been showcased, most of which are visible in his interviews. In many of his appearances, Kodak has appeared high or intoxicated, or both, to the point of actually passing out. Not only that, Kodak has gotten visibly irritated whenever his issues get brought up, which is understandable once you know what he's gone through. And in one particular instance, Kodak even walked away from an interview when things got too uncomfortable for him. This happened when Kodak dropped by on Hot 97. Around this time, Kodak had already piled up his rap sheet. And although Kodak was there to talk about music, Ebro felt it was necessary to bring up Kodak's prior legal troubles.
I looked at your rap sheet, I looked at your weed charges, smoking weed in front of your kid on the gram, and different things you've been going through. And I know it's sensitive, but how you feel about everything that's going on?
Kodak remained calm at the beginning of this interview, and things went off in a very normal way. It wasn't until the tail end of the interview that Kodak Black would get visibly irritated after Ebro brought up his sexual assault charges.
But you know, we take sexual assault here serious, and we can't, get into details, but we hope, to have you back so we can have a deeper conversation about that, because, this is a serious topic.
You could tell that Kodak didn't want to continue with this topic, so they tried to change the topic to the moon landing conspiracy for some reason, which Kodak didn't like either.
Kodak, do you believe that our moon landing in 1969 actually took place?
Out of his frustration, Kodak threatened to leave unless they changed the subject, so instead of stopping him, they just urged him to leave.
So it's like, change the subject, I'm finna walk out.
We'll change which subject?
Just whatever, like.
Well, no, they tried to change the subject. They was talking about the moon landing.
That's bull.
This drama would actually lead Ebro to ban Kodak from performing at Summer Jam, which caused the two to have permanent issues with each other. But that wasn't the only time Kodak's interviews have caused controversies. In fact, over time, Kodak's fans noticed that the rapper's manner of speech seems to be degrading over the years. Recently, he's always seemed to be high during interviews, which makes him slur his speech a lot, making it very hard to understand him. Compare that to how Kodak used to talk in the past, and you can see the vast difference in then and now.
Yeah, I'm a scholar. I can be a scholar. That's crazy. Yeah, man, I'm over there up to the house reading the Geneva strategy. Yeah.
After all of this, most rap fans either dislike Kodak or love his music and accept him for who he is. However, even the people who are still 10 toes down for Kodak after his outbursts and numerous trips in prison, including an essay charge and evidence of child neglect, they most certainly weren't as forgiving to him during that time when he disrespected Nipsey Hussle and his partner Lauren London. See, a few weeks after Nipsey Hussle passed away, Kodak Black talked about it on his Instagram Live. However, Kodak Black couldn't just help himself, saying something only he can.
That's the Lauren London, that baby though. She finna be out here single. She finna be a whole widow out here. I'd be the best man I could be, fuck.
Seeing that Nipsey Hussle was not only a highly respected rapper, but also a beloved figure in the hip-hop community, back when he was still alive, Kodak's unwarranted comments towards the grieving widow didn't go well. As you can expect, Kodak got called out by the hip-hop community at large. Some of the biggest names that called him out were The Game.
This shit for Kodak Black and any other disrespecting my Nip name, his legacy, his family.
T.I. told Kodak to fix that.
Hey, Kodak Black, you out of pocket. Fix that shit.
And Tank told him that whatever he was doing, to wash it.
That's not it, bro. I promise you, that's not it.
Things got so bad that Kodak had to issue a public apology.
If I disrespected you, Lauren London,
in any shape or form, I'm sorry.
However, people felt like this apology wasn't really heartfelt, and that he was just forced to do it to avoid a professional fallout, which had its warrants. I mean, he apologized and then said, "Even though I didn't." Kodak even had the audacity to get angry at those who called him out online.
That's how you feel, bro. That's how y'all want to feel. And I got a whole tour, like, I'm in.
Now, at this point, things really did not bode well for Kodak's career, because not only were the pleas for Kodak to get cancelled coming from social media, even rappers and talking heads from the hip-hop community were fed up with Kodak. When Kodak disrespected Nipsey, rappers weren't the only ones to call him out. Power 106, one of LA's biggest radio shows, also decided to do a complete blackout of everything Kodak. They stopped playing his music,
her children, his legacy. We here at Power 106 in Los Angeles decided as a team, as a family, as a unit, to drop Kodak's music.
And bring him on for interviews. Even Big Boy, one of the most respected and chillest hip-hop hosts ever, got fed up with Kodak and did the same thing Power 106 did. Big Boy went on Instagram to air out his frustrations on the young rapper and his terrible apology, saying, "I won't disrespect my timeline posting a pic of Kodak. However, I will say this, I'm not here for the blatant disrespect and fake ass apologies. To disrespect the King Nipsey and the Queen Lauren is where I draw the line." Big Boy's post was supported by multiple hip hop figures like Kid Capri, DC Young Fly, and Snoop Dogg. Kodak essentially made an enemy of Los Angeles as a whole, seeing as Nipsey was one of the city's most reputable rappers, and it most definitely held Kodak's career back for a bit. But behind all of these controversial issues, there was one surprising moment that came out from this. See, despite everything Kodak has done, all the things he did to basically tarnish his reputation, the hip-hop community got an unpleasant surprise when Kendrick Lamar featured Kodak in his album Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers in 2022, on a track called Silent Hill. See, this is surprising to many because Kendrick is a rapper who is known for his advocacies on matters such as street violence and women's rights. A lot of people felt like a wave of dissonance when he featured someone like Kodak, someone who's obviously been charged with SA, robbery, false imprisonment, and battery. In fact, some articles have even called this out. One article even had the headline of "Kodak Black does not deserve to be part of Kendrick Lamar's redemption arc." Another tweet had some scathing words to say about Kodak's feature on the album. I don't know if I'm missing something, but Kendrick Lamar speaking about his experience being SA'd seems a bit empty when you have Kodak Black as one of the few artists on the album. How could you think about how painful that experience was and then pay a known A-worder? Although it just seemed like the author completely misunderstanding the metaphor behind Mr. Morale and the missing point behind the song. Kendrick never spoke publicly about this matter, and maybe he felt he never needed to. Maybe Kendrick did see something in Kodak, or maybe he knows something we don't. Either way, many people felt Kodak was undeserving of that feature, and for good reason. And while you would think Kodak might have gotten better in the past few months, as he has been staying away from drama and legal problems, his appearance on Cenat's livestream managed to destroy any assumption that he was actually getting sober. In fact, the stream concerned many of Yak's fans, as he did a lot of things during the 2-hour-long appearance that was noteworthy, to say the least. Throughout the stream, Kodak acted maniacally and unhinged. At one point, Kodak did something that not only alarmed the viewers, but almost ended the stream and Kai's career.
What's that?
If you missed it, Kodak basically trick-shotted a pill many assumed was Percocets, something he's admitted to being heavily addicted to. The fact was, during his entire appearance in Kai's stream, there were moments where it looked like Kodak was tweaking out.
Huh?
No.
Something that was uncomfortable and painful to watch. There was also that one time where Kodak just looked out of it, with his eyes open wide, before he was finally snapped back to earth because of a burp of all things.
Excuse me, man. Damn it, man, because I'm tired, man.
And honestly, give credit to Cenat, as thankfully, despite the chaos that Kodak brought to the stream, Kai was able to keep it all together. And he was very understanding and patient with his guest, who was obviously on cloud 9. I mean, at one point, Kai even prayed for him.
Pray for you?
Yeah.
I want to pray for us.
Thank you.
God, thank you so much for having Kodak pull up here, you know what I'm saying? Making sure that we having a great time, God. He's happy, I'm happy. Make sure we remain happy, you know?
This was clutched by Kai because there was actually one moment when Kodak looked genuinely hurt after he saw that the chat was not liking his presence during the stream.
Y'all don't want to see me. Y'all don't like me, yo.
Who don't like you?
They don't enjoy me here, bro.
Who don't like you? Chat?
Yeah, everybody on the chat.
Now they all saying W's.
So Kai had to reassure him and tell him that everyone wanted him to be there.
That was one. You got one. That was one person. Look, they say they love you. Look, chat. Look, they say no. I love Kodak. I love Kodak. No, stay. go.
So after that stream went viral, many went on social media to express their concerns for Kodak. However, Kodak himself thought there was nothing wrong with his actions throughout the stream. He basically defended his actions on Instagram, saying, "Y'all be on shrooms, acid, and all types of random ass shit. I take one perk, and y'all be so fucking butthurt. Y'all don't like me anyway." Now, fans weren't only concerned because he was high during the stream. His fans were concerned because his recent stint in jail was because the authorities found a system which went against his probation. Kodak has also talked about going on a recovery journey a few months before his stream, but it looked like he abandoned that altogether. Maybe expecting Kodak to stay true to his word is too high of a bar. But the controversies surrounding Kodak really do not stop. Despite everything that Yak has gone through, from his multiple legal troubles to substance abuse to his disrespectful actions, Kodak's vow to change and take his spirituality seriously never truly seemed to stick. The fact is that cancel culture has their own merits when trying to cancel Kodak, and none of his antics seem to help his case. Because this is exactly what happened recently in November of 2024, when some girl asked Kodak about his addiction out of nowhere. This did not sit well with Kodak. So in his response, Kodak went live and asked his fans to spin on her page. In the same video, Kodak then spoke to the girl directly, telling her she didn't know what was going on. Kodak then went on to explain why this particular girl ticked him off so much. So in your opinion, who was out of line here? Regardless though, it is sad to see how despite almost being a decade in the limelight with all of his publicized struggles and successes, Kodak still has issues to deal with. When we talk about canceled rappers, it would be a travesty if we did not talk about the self-proclaimed boss of hip-hop and constant target of cancel culture, Rick Ross. Rick Ross's success is undeniable. However, despite his fame, there are also those who do not like him at all. And his problems with maintaining a respected reputation from the hip-hop community all started in 2008. See, that year, a website known as The Smoking Gun posted a video of Rick Ross when he was younger, and this photo would haunt Rick Ross for years and years to come, even to this day. The image in question shows Rose in a uniform as a correctional officer, which was extremely problematic due to the gangster and crime boss persona that Rick Ross portrays, which was contradicted by the photo. I mean, you can't be a gangster wearing that, right? And ever since that photo was released, it has become a nuisance Ross just can't get rid of. The photo got even more popular when Trick Daddy publicly addressed it, formally bringing Ross's past to light to the hip-hop community. Of course, Ross would deny this photo's legitimacy adamantly for years.
Trick Daddy recently accused you of working as a prison guard at one point, Rick. Is there any truth to that?
No, that's not true. But that's disappointing to hear that he said that. He said that?
That's what the question said, yeah.
That's crazy.
Eventually though, Rick Ross couldn't escape the photos as they were proven legitimate, so he finally admitted to working as a correctional officer.
Were you a correctional officer at one point?
I was, yeah.
So going all the way back, when was that? How long ago?
Maybe when I was 20.
However, his reasons changed a lot over the years, and he would always give a very vague answer to this.
You know what I mean? So we all did a lot of different things to put us all in position. In position, right. And it's not the obvious. So if Rick Ross did work at one of these places, it wasn't for the obvious reason.
But it honestly just sounded like Rose was stumbling his words.
Right. You know, it's a lot of gold mines around people's faces that people really don't know how to take advantage of. So yeah, me and, you know, we did what we do. You know what I mean?
As I've mentioned, given Ross's boss and gangster persona, it's kind of understandable why he would deny being a correctional officer. I mean, you can't really respect someone who raps about doing crime and all of that when he himself was an agent of the law. However, things just got more and more awkward the more he lied about it, and his credibility just ended up getting more and more questioned by the hip-hop community because of his obvious lies. Obviously, Ross wanted nothing more to erase that part of history and to keep his past as a correctional officer hidden. So much so that he was even willing to get physical if you brought it up. This is a lesson that DJ Vlad learned the hard way. See, DJ Vlad was among those who kept bringing up this matter to Ross back when the news was hot. In fact, Vlad even did an interview with Ross, and during the interview, Ross kept trying to avoid the question, but Vlad kept bringing it back up.
Not true, man, but, you know, dog a sucker, and he mad that, you know, I done came out of nowhere and just, you know, took over the streets like that, you know what I mean?
This wouldn't bode well for Vlad. Remember, this was still around the time when Ross never admitted to being a correctional officer. I guess he got really angry at Vlad for continuing to bring it up. And while this interview would probably be a moment that Vlad would never forget, for positive and negative reasons. On the negative side, right after that interview, Ross apparently couldn't handle his emotions and had his guys give Vlad the beats. The attack left DJ Vlad hospitalized. On why Ross attacked him, DJ Vlad said Ross, who painstakingly created his public persona to be that of a major drug dealer and gangster, in reality is a former correctional officer. In retaliation, DJ Vlad filed a $2 million lawsuit against Ross for permanent bodily injuries plus punitive damages. Vlad won this case, but the judge only asked Ross to pay $300,000, $50,000 in compensatory damages, and $250,000 in punitive damages. And while Rick Ross attacked Vlad in an attempt to shut him up and bury his past as a correctional officer, in the end, he only brought more light to it and damaged his reputation further. And as if all the lies and fabricated personas weren't enough to make people hate Rick Ross, he's also been through a lot of legal troubles and questionable actions that have done nothing but make people dislike him more. One of the worst cases that was thrown Ross's way was when he was charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and aggravated battery in 2015. The victims were Ross's groundskeepers, who held a party at his property without his permission. Expectedly, Ross wasn't too keen about this incident, but what wasn't acceptable was the fact that when Ross found out about the party, he trapped both groundskeepers in his guest house, where he and his bodyguards allegedly gave the groundskeepers beats. Of course, the victims would try to find justice for this incident and eventually filed a case against Ross and his crew for the crime. Fortunately for them, 2 years after this case was filed, Ross and his bodyguard were sentenced to 5 years of probation. And while that case was enough, that wasn't nearly as bad as this next incident. Now, let me start by telling you that this next segment is nothing but disgusting. See, in 2015, Rick Ross was rightfully dragged through the mud after an unnamed woman claimed she was essayed by Ross and his team following the Grammy weekend. According to the victim, she joined up with Ross and his crew at the W Hotel in the Westwood section of Los Angeles, and they all went to a convention. However, little did the victim know that this was going to be one of the worst moments of her life. Apparently, while in the van with Ross, Thaddeus Black James, a DJ, and 3 guards, the victim stated that she was given a glass of liquor. What she would later discover was that she was drugged by the men. Shortly thereafter, she became dizzy and passed out. According to the victim, when she regained consciousness, she found that she was alone with Black. She was then led back to Black's hotel room, and I can't say anything more, but I'm sure you get the gist. The woman then filed an SA lawsuit against Thaddeus James after this, but she also sued Ross for negligent supervision and retention. According to the woman, Ross knew, or in the exercise of due care, should have known that James had a propensity, character trait, and practice of drugging and SAing females. It's unknown what happened in that case. Ross never spoke publicly about it, and there are no records online that show whether the case was thrown out or resolved. But yeah, just like his lawsuit with Freeway Ross, even if he did win against this one, it's still a very bad look for him. Now, one thing to note about this incident was how unsurprised those who have listened to Ross's music are. Because not only has Rick Ross been accused of being a fraud, but he's also known for being a creep in his songs. Particularly, there was a line that Ross wrote which was very R-wordy to say the least, which of course sparked major controversies when that song was released. See, in 2013, rapper Rocco released a track called UNO, which featured Future and Rick Ross. While the song was well received, it went viral for an entirely different reason. In this song, Rick Ross basically admitted to essaying someone with the lines, "Put all in her champagne, she ain't even know it, took her home, and I enjoy that, she ain't even know it." As you can imagine, the backlash for this was massive. What's even more ironic about Ross's verse is that right before he boasted about essaying someone, he also talked about his Reebok deal. So Ross's detractors used that and called on Reebok to cut ties with the rapper. There was even a petition signed, which ended up garnering over 72,000 signatures. Reebok eventually obliged to this petition, and rightfully so, dropped the rapper as a brand ambassador. After dropping Ross, Reebok issued the statement, "While we do not believe that Rick Ross condones SA, we are very disappointed that he has yet to display an understanding of the seriousness of the issue or an appropriate level of remorse. At the time, it's in everyone's best interest for Reebok to end its partnership with Mr. Ross." The backlash towards Ross came from all kinds of directions. Several of his shows got cancelled, radio shows stopped playing the song altogether, and Rocco even dropped Ross's verse from the song. Due to the mounting pressure, as well as the evident damage to his career, Rick Ross eventually issued an apology. Sort of. It wasn't really an apology, but more like defending himself, which was honestly something that you'd expect Ross to do. During an interview with the radio station, Ross said this in defense of his line. "It was a misunderstanding with the lyric, a misrepresentation where the term R wasn't used. I would never use the word R in my records." I guess it's too much for Ross to understand that even though he didn't use the word exactly in his line, anyone with the most basic level of comprehension will understand what he was implying with the lyric. Despite that, he followed up with a truer apology. Perhaps Reebok dropping him really did a number. In a statement, Ross said the following: "Before I am an artist, I am a father, a son, and a brother to some of the most cherished women in the world. So for me to suggest in any way that harm and violation be brought to a woman is one of my biggest mistakes and regrets. As an artist, one of the most liberating things is being able to paint pictures with my words, but with that comes a great responsibility. And most recently, my choice of words was not only offensive, It does not reflect my true heart, and for this, I apologize. Let's pause for a moment here and acknowledge that Ross's choice of words wasn't the only problem. It was the message behind the words. While some seem to believe that this was a sincere apology from Ross, others simply did not buy his BS, and rightfully so. I mean, who can blame them? It's not like that was the only time Ross said something massively misogynistic. For example, remember that time Rick Ross talked about his unwillingness to sign female artists to his record label? Well, just listen to him talk about this.
You know, I never did it because I always thought like I would end up in the female rapper in the business up here. I'm so still my business. I gotta be honest with you. You know, she looking good. I'm spending so much money on her photo shoots. I gotta.
He didn't exactly do himself any favors with this one. This would have been creepy coming from anyone, but it's even more creepy coming from a rapper who not only had a fake persona, but also rapped about essaying someone. And while his statements were already disgusting, it didn't help that Ross was also being very creepy towards Angela Yee throughout this interview. I mean, just listen to this.
What you said? That ain't what I heard.
I did say it's freezing in here. I got goosebumps.
I need to see your legs though.
All right, they right under here.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Of course, this too was very ill received by his followers, so Rick Ross had to issue another statement. He took to Facebook this time to apologize for being a creep, saying, "I want to address a very insensitive comment I made on a very sensitive issue, especially in a minority-dominated industry like hip-hop. My entire empire's backbone is led by two of the strongest people I know, and they happen to be women, my mother and sister. The operations wouldn't run without them, and I have the highest regard and respect for women in the industry. I have a daughter myself, my most cherished gift in the world." Ross proceeded with the statement, further emphasizing how impactful his platform can be. "My comment is not a reflection of my beliefs on the issue, a mistake I regret. I hope I use my mistake, my platform, and the community to create a positive discussion to implement change on a very important issue. Respect for the ones who stand up to say, hey, that isn't right. Now it's time to accept responsibility and I'll do better." But this time, I don't think anyone believed his apology. And speaking of non-believers, another matter that messed up Rick Ross's reputation as a rapper was when he decided to beef with 50 Cent, a man who's known for not taking anyone's BS, and more importantly, roasting them. Apparently, this beef began when Rick Ross and 50 Cent came across each other during the BET Awards in 2008. According to Ross, 50 allegedly looked at Ross differently. However, 50 later claimed to have never met Ross before.
Now, I ain't never had a conversation with these niggas. I don't know these niggas. I know your name, I seen your video. Other than that, we ain't got no business together. We ain't got no reason to even be talking to each other, right?
But that didn't stop Ross from subtly dissing 50 and officially starting the beef. In 2009, Ross called out 50 on his track Mafia Music with the line, "I love to pay your bills, can't wait to pay your rent, Curtis Jackson baby mama, I ain't asking for a cent." With that, the beef was officially underway, and 50 warned that he was going to bite back and he was going to do it for fun.
So, I'm deciding to f your life up. Rick, bro, I'm gonna f your life up. For fun.
And that's exactly what 50 Cent proceeded to do. But the way 50 took shots went beyond his diss songs, because shortly after Ross fired the first shot, instead of putting out a response track to Ross, 50 released a series of cartoons called Officer Ricky, mocking Ross's past as a correctional officer and essentially reminding everyone of Ross's fraudulent persona.
"You think you lost your shoe deal because of me?" "Yes." "It's because you're a cop, Rick. Nobody likes the f***ing cops, Rick. It's not my fault." "Boss." "You don't have anything else to say? They're gonna give me 100 f***ing years. And all you can say is, boss."
So where is he today? Well, today, Rick Ross is still beefing with other rappers like his former friend, Drake, and honestly just making a lot of money. So, yeah. But now, let's talk about a rapper who has basically more or less dealt with a similar set of problems and behavior as Rick Ross and Kodak Black, that being DaBaby. In his case, DaBaby went from being one of the hottest rising stars in the early 2020s to losing his brand deals left and right and being pulled from festival lineups, and it all began in 2021. But what was the catalyst for DaBaby's fall from grace? Well, in the 25th of July that year, DaBaby was one of the performers for Rolling Loud in Miami. His set was great as usual, it was high energy, his fans loved the performance, and it would have been great all in all, except for one very crucial moment. For some reason, DaBaby made some very offhanded comments, and let's just say these comments didn't sit well with a whole lot of people, especially with the LGBTQ community.
"You didn't show up today with HIV, AIDS, any of them deadly transmitted diseases that'll make you die in 2-3 weeks, put a cell phone like that lady."
Seemingly out of nowhere, DaBaby just casually made fun of people with HIV.
"Your pussy smell like water, put a cell phone like that fellas. Lights up. Fellas, if you ain't sucking dick in the parking lot, put your cell phone like that."
Of course, the entire crowd also seemed to not like that at all. given how silent they were when he said such ignorant comments. How could he not know that would totally backfire on him? And it did, very, very quickly. Just a few days after the festival, that clip went viral across social media platforms, sparking criticism from across the world, from media outlets and influential people to fans and other artists. One of the biggest names who criticized DaBaby was Elton John, who went on X and said, "We've been shocked to read about the HIV misinformation and homophobic statements made at a recent DaBaby show. This fuels stigma and discrimination and is the opposite of what our world needs to fight the AIDS epidemic." While laying out factual data regarding HIV in the modern age, DaBaby was plain ignorant. Dua Lipa, who once collaborated with DaBaby on a remix of Levitating, her smash hit, also went on Instagram to talk about her disappointment with her former collaborator, saying, "I know my fans know where my heart lies and that I stand 100% with the LGBTQ community. We need to come together to fight the stigma and ignorance around HIV/AIDS. More importantly, members of the LGBTQ community, as well as those who advocate for LGBTQ rights and HIV awareness, condemned DaBaby and called for his cancellation right away." And as more people talked about DaBaby's Rolling Loud debacle, the more widespread the issue became. And the more widespread it became, the lower DaBaby's stocks dropped. However, while conversations regarding DaBaby's comments were limited to social media at first, it eventually reached the mainstream media outlets. This, of course, made the controversy spread far beyond the confines of the hip-hop world. And as the backlash became stronger and stronger, DaBaby's comments at Rolling Loud began to have real-world consequences that not only affected his reputation, but also hurt his career and his money. DaBaby's detractors started calling for accountability for his ignorant words, so they targeted the brands that had any association to DaBaby. And this is where you will see the influence of cancel culture at play. Very shortly after, those brands started dropping DaBaby for fear of hurting their reputation and stock. For starters, the UK fashion company Boohoo Man, who partnered with DaBaby earlier that year, canceled their collection with the artist and cut ties with them, while putting out the statement. Boohoo Man condemned the use of homophobic language and confirmed, "We will no longer be working with DaBaby. We stand by and support the LGBTQ+ community and do not tolerate hate speech or discrimination in any form." And if you think that's bad, it gets worse. That year, Burger King was also supposed to collaborate with DaBaby, but this deal never went through in the light of the rapper's controversies at the time.
I don't even know if I'm supposed to speak on this, but whatever. I had my own meal at Burger King. A lot of people don't know that. It was called the Jonathan Kirk meal. They wanted to use my name. I shot a commercial for it and everything. Everything popped off. Yeah, they had my name on the box, everything.
Did it come out?
Had me. No, that's when all the controversy.
But that's not all. Aside from losing brand deals, festival and events that had booked DaBaby also dropped him from their lineups. 1 week after Rolling Loud, DaBaby was supposed to perform at Lollapalooza. However, just a few hours before he was supposed to perform on August 1st, the festival removed him from their lineup. Lollapalooza was founded on diversity, inclusivity, respect, and love. With that in mind, DaBaby will no longer be performing at Grant Park tonight, the festival announced. And this is where it started to get bad for DaBaby. After losing the gig, other festivals and events followed suit. The Azura Amphitheater in Kansas City, who had DaBaby set to perform on August 14th, canceled his show. The New York City Governor's Ball, which was scheduled for September 24th to 26th, also removed DaBaby and organized a new lineup together. Summer Jam, Park Live, Music Midtown, iHeartRadio Music Festival, and much more also dropped DaBaby from their show lineups. And this pretty much cleared up his entire 2021. And if that wasn't enough to damage DaBaby's career and wallet, radio stations also stopped playing DaBaby's music and Spotify removed his tracks from their featured playlist. DaBaby's cancellation was in full force, and his career was bleeding simply because of a statement he didn't think through before speaking at a music festival. It took him a few seconds to destroy a career that took him years to build up. Now, after basically witnessing the downfall of DaBaby, it's safe to assume that he should have reflected on his actions, especially since he had nothing else to do for the rest of 2021. So the question is, did DaBaby ever apologize for what he said at Rolling Loud? Of course he did. However, there was a problem with his apology. A few days after the festival, DaBaby went on social media and uploaded a video where he addressed the whole controversy.
What me and my fans do at the live show, it don't concern you on the internet or you bitter on the internet. It's not y'all business. You know what I'm saying?
However, instead of apologizing for those he offended, he simply brushed everything off by saying everything that happens in his shows is between him and his fans. He even made it seem like his comments were taken out of context.
And what I do at a live show is for the audience at the live show. It'll never translate correctly to somebody looking at a little 5-6 second clip.
If that wasn't enough, DaBaby also went on to say that he wasn't homophobic because he had a lot of gay fans, even though he outright disrespected them at Rolling Loud. But he doubled down on his views on HIV by saying his gay fans don't have them because they are nasty. Talk about ignorant and out of touch.
Cause even my gay fans don't got f***ing AIDS, stupid ass n***s. They don't got AIDS. My gay fans, they take care of themselves. They ain't going for that. They ain't no nasty gay n***s.
He also went on Twitter to formally apologize to those who have been affected by HIV and got upset. anyone who ever been affected by AIDS, HIV, y'all got the right to be upset. I said what I said and it was insensitive, even though I have no intentions on offending anybody, so my apologies. And DaBaby really could have stopped there, but he didn't. Instead, he continued with a statement and basically added more fuel to the already burning house that was his career. But the LGBTQ community, I ain't tripping on y'all. Do y'all business, it's y'all business. So he basically refused to apologize to the LGBTQ community. DaBaby also put out a statement at the end of the music video he released for the track Giving What It's Supposed to Give, which came out a few days after the Rolling Loud event. DaBaby's statement said, "Don't fight hate with hate. My apologies for being me the same way you want the freedom to be you." So he really likened the freedom of identity to the freedom to say ignorant statements. And as you can imagine, this apology tour did not help DaBaby's case at all. In fact, it did quite the opposite. His ignorance and ability to sincerely apologize led everything going from bad to worse, from brands cutting ties with him to festivals and events dropping him. So DaBaby just dug himself into a deeper hole. And after realizing just how damaging his comments were to his career and livelihood, he went on social media to once again talk about the entire situation. But this time, it seemed like he learned his lesson, and his statement had a bit more sincerity to it. Social media moves so fast that people want to demolish you before you even have the opportunity to grow and educate and learn from your mistakes as a man who has had to make his own way from very difficult circumstances. DaBaby then brings up how the people he knew, perhaps the brands that have dropped him and the artists who have called him out, have turned against him after this controversy. Having people I know publicly working against me, knowing that what I needed was education on these topics and guidance, has been challenging to me. I appreciate the many people who came to me with kindness, who reached out to me privately to offer wisdom, education, and resources. That's what I needed, and it was received. Then, finally, DaBaby apologized properly. I want to apologize to the LGBTQ+ community for the hurtful and triggering comments. Again, I apologize for my misinformed comments about HIV, AIDS, and I know education on this is important. Love to all, God bless. He should have done this way sooner, or better yet, he shouldn't have been homophobic in the first place. And while DaBaby apologized properly, which is what people have been asking him since the beginning, this didn't shift people's perceptions of him, and rightfully so. A lot of people believe this genuine apology was performative and forced. Considering most of DaBaby's revenue came from brand deals and live shows, many people thought the only reason he issued that apology at all was because his career already got hurt after all those brands and festivals dropped him. In an attempt to educate himself on the reality of HIV, and let's be honest, to repair his image after the terrible series of apologies, DaBaby also met with several HIV/AIDS awareness organizations. However, DaBaby's doubters and detractors were proven right. Apparently, while one of those organizations, namely the Black AIDS Institute, said that the conversation with DaBaby was productive and that he received the learning gracefully, they also said nothing else of note came out of that meeting, meaning all of that was just for publicity. In fact, 3 of the organizations that DaBaby sat down with told the Daily Beast that he had not heard from the rapper since, nor did he ever make any financial contributions to their respective groups. The onus is now on him, if he chooses to convert his misinformation into allyship by supporting the work of the Black AIDS Institute and other people of color-led HIV organizations. A representative of the Black AIDS said. This also didn't help DaBaby's image, as it cemented the idea that his entire apologetic approach to all of this was just forced and fake. So to many, this wasn't DaBaby being sincerely sorry, this was him trying to save what was left of his career, and he didn't do anything to dispute this fact. But of course, not everyone turned their backs on DaBaby. Although he had more haters following the Rolling Loud controversy, there were still those in the music industry that showed their support to the downtrodden rapper and believed that he could still bounce back. One of DaBaby's supporters at the time was Boosie, who's also someone who has done some equally controversial and cancelable things in his career. In an Instagram post, Boosie complained that people were going against DaBaby but were supportive of Lil Nas X, who had overtly sexual performances, which to him is disrespectful.
You don't feel that disrespect going dance naked? You don't think that's disrespect in front of boys who trying to be straight? It's totally disrespect.
Although this rant may not be much of a support to DaBaby, but more of a homophobic rant against Lil Nas X, which is clear considering how he threatened to, give him the beats if you were to ever see him.
If I'm at awards and he go up there, I'm gonna drag his ass off stage and his ass.
Another one of DaBaby's loudest supporters throughout this entire controversy was T.I., who was dealing with issues of his own. Seriously, it's like DaBaby attacked some of the worst figures in hip-hop, attracted some of the worst figures in hip-hop. Like Boosie, T.I. also went on Instagram to talk about how the LGBTQ community basically bullied DaBaby out of the industry, which was ironic to him because he said the LGBTQ community wanted support because they didn't want to be bullied anymore, and now they're the ones doing the bullying.
We all stood up on behalf of gays and lesbians and people in the gay community because we thought it was some bullshit for y'all to have to be bullied. But I don't think any of us did that to feel like you would now have the authority to come and bully us.
Many believed though, that T.I. wasn't in any place to make statements like this, since at the time he was being investigated for allegedly drugging and assailing his wife. So DaBaby wasn't exactly backed up by the most reputable people in hip-hop. Another figure who basically went easy on DaBaby was Nick Cannon, who didn't necessarily just defend DaBaby alone, but spoke against the notion of cancel culture as a whole. During an interview with The Breakfast Club, the Wild 'N Out host told Charlemagne, "I challenge all these people who actually want to cancel somebody, and even specifically in DaBaby's situation, let's use this as an opportunity for education." DaBaby's situation was so big that it truly went beyond just the music industry. Of course, who could forget Dave Chappelle's infamous bit on DaBaby's cancellation during his Netflix special, The Closer, which was also controversial in and of itself. During the special, Dave commented on how no one batted an eye when he allegedly killed a man, which if you're thinking, yo, what? We'll get to later. But everyone went all out on him when he said what he said at the Rolling Loud Festival.
Oh, this is true. Google it. DaBaby shot and killed a in Walmart in North Carolina. Nothing bad happened to his career. Do you see where I'm going with this? In our country, you can shoot and kill a nigga, but you better not hurt a gay person's feelings.
Now, DaBaby had enough supporters to get back on his feet. For example, both 50 Cent and Kanye brought him on stage for various events, including a Rolling Loud event. Unfortunately for DaBaby, his career would never truly bounce back. While DaBaby losing brand deals and getting dropped from massive festivals were clear signs of his downfall, his declining numbers cemented the idea that the once rising star truly did fall from grace. At the height of DaBaby's career, he released Blame It On Baby, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts and sold an astounding 124,000 units in its first week alone. Fast forward to 2 years later, and in the wake of DaBaby's Rolling Loud disaster, DaBaby released another album called Baby on Baby 2. Unlike his 2020 hit, Baby on Baby 2 only debuted at number 34 on the Billboard charts and only sold 17K in equivalent units. That's basically an 86% decrease. I can't think of any rapper who ruined his career that much in this generation. Actually, I can, but these numbers are abysmal for someone like DaBaby. In response to the low numbers, DaBaby believed he was being blackballed by the industry, stating, "Not bad for the blackballed DaBaby," while posting his low sales numbers on his Instagram stories, which just showed how out of touch DaBaby really was with what was happening. And as expected, aside from his poor album numbers, his ticket sales also saw a significant decline. In September of 2022, DaBaby was supposed to hold a concert at the Smooth & King Center as a part of his For the Culture tour. However, due to the embarrassing low sales numbers, the concert had to be cancelled altogether. See, the venue this concert was set to take place holds around 14,000 people. DaBaby sold less than 500 tickets leading up to the event. What's worse is that the tickets were only priced at $35. Basically, DaBaby expected to make around 500K, but in reality, he was only able to make around 15K, which might not even cover the crew's expenses. Considering DaBaby literally headlined festivals and sold at festivals just a year prior, this was an extremely painful decline. Of course, to save face, the agency that represented DaBaby denied the low sales numbers were the reason why the show was cancelled. They put out a statement saying, DaBaby's New Orleans show was pulled by the artist team due to the promoter being in breach of the contract. DaBaby will be back in New Orleans very soon to make it up to his fans. The 400 to 500 in the city, maybe. While the agency was timely with their statement, no one actually believed them, because all that captured people's attention was the fact that DaBaby only sold around 400 tickets for a venue that was supposed to seat 14,000 people. Of course, everyone clowned on him for it. A month later, DaBaby even resorted to promotions just to drive sales. DaBaby was set to play at Iron City in Birmingham, Alabama on November 15th of that year. The general admission tickets were priced at $22, but Eventbrite offered BOGO promotion to drive up sales. DaBaby still had a few fans, of course, but he also got mocked extensively for resorting to using BOGO promotions to sell tickets, which is highly unbecoming for a rising star. DaBaby, however, ignored the mockery and stated that he was still capable of selling out shows. In response to the clowning he faced after his BOGO promotion, DaBaby took to social media and posted a video of himself performing to a packed crowd in Boston. Along with that, DaBaby wrote the caption, "Stop it. Tell him how we rock in Boston." It's no crowd of 14,000, but at least he was able to sell over 100,000 tickets at the time. So yes, DaBaby still had a few dedicated fans, but the fact of the matter is, the numbers that he made recently are only a minuscule margin of his numbers before that Rolling Loud incident. One Twitter user perfectly encapsulated DaBaby's situation with this tweet. DaBaby selling his tickets BOGO has got to be the saddest ever for a rapper. And it's crazy because nobody else hurt his career more than he did. Talk about self-sabotage, a lack of situational awareness, and ego. On top of the Rolling Loud controversy, however, DaBaby also faced several legal issues that hurt his image. Now, this one is a minor issue, but on top of everything else, it just added to the negative perception people already had of the rapper. Back in 2022, DaBaby got in an altercation with his ex-girlfriend and baby mama, Danny Lay's brother. Danny's brother, Brendan Bills, was given the beats by DaBaby at a bowling alley in LA in 2022 following a heated argument. Bills was apparently unhappy with how the relationship between his sister and the rapper ended, and when he went to confront the latter to talk like men, a fight ensued after DaBaby allegedly threw the first punch. After Bills slipped on the ground, DaBaby's crew ran at him and began throwing punches, which left him with several cuts and bruises on his face. Speaking about the incident, Bills said on Instagram, "Stop calling me if I'm good. These guys is pussy. I'm stood on my own, myself. They ain't ready for this one-on-one. I will give you the beats." Danny Lay herself also spoke on the altercation, saying, "Lame as hell, running up on my brother on some slippery ass floors with 5 or 6 of your boys while he's by himself and not even touching him. Lame and so sad. I pray this stops now, because this is my family, and I got a daughter to raise. Sad." When DaBaby was approached by paparazzi following a Kanye West party, he was asked about his altercation with Bills, to which he claimed he was merely acting in self-defense. "Shouldn't run around threatening people," DaBaby told the paparazzi. After the fight, Bills filed a civil lawsuit against DaBaby, demanding $4 million for physical and psychological damage, as well as medical expenses covered. In response to the suit, DaBaby released a diss track on Bills, mocking him for suing him, which apparently isn't a gangster thing to do. "He was gangster before, now you suing me? Huh? That tough shit? He don't want it no more." And while DaBaby made fun of Brandon Bills on the track, the public perception wasn't really kind to either of them. The video of them fighting that circulated online just showed how absurd the whole fight looked. "Bro, fighting in a bowling lane is the funniest shit I've seen in a while. It should have been a professional promotion," one commenter said. People also clowned DaBaby for acting tough even though he had a crew behind him. "I think it would have been different if it was a one-on-one, no interference. People go harder when they got backup." While this definitely didn't help DaBaby's reputation, this was nothing compared to the legal problem he faced way back in 2018, way before DaBaby ever reached the height of his career. See, before DaBaby was selling out venues, collaborating with major pop stars, hanging out with all the upper echelon of hip-hop, and saying unhinged things in live shows, he was just a small-time rapper with a small following in Charlotte. However, DaBaby's problematic behavior was already evident before reaching the top of the charts. In the evening of November of 2018, DaBaby went to a local Walmart to shop for winter clothes for his daughter and his baby mama. As he was shopping peacefully, he was approached by a 19-year-old guy named Jalen Craig and his friend, Henry Douglas. Now, according to DaBaby's accounts, these guys were trying to rob him, and so a fight between DaBaby and the alleged robbers ensued.
Come out in that footage, come out and show y'all how I was in there with my 1-year-old daughter, my 5-year-old little nigga, my baby mama, on some family shit. And he walked up on me, tried me, whipped out on my whole family. A lot of you niggas owe me an apology, dog.
A fight ensued between the two parties, and Jalen Craig passed away. When questioned by the authorities about the incident, DaBaby claimed he merely acted in self-defense. Fortunately for DaBaby, the police investigation concluded that DaBaby indeed only acted in self-defense, acquitting him of a murder charge. As a result of his acquittal, DaBaby was only charged with weapons possession and was only sentenced to a year's supervised probation. While things went as bad as they could that night, DaBaby did express his sympathy and extend his condolences of the family of Jalen Craig the night after he died.
You know, condolences goes out to the other parties involved. You see what I'm saying?
To this day, DaBaby maintains his innocence about what happened during that fateful night. However, Jalen's family and friends tell a different story. According to them, Jalen and Henry didn't approach DaBaby to rob him. In fact, the story that Jalen's family told actually paints a much more tragic picture, because apparently, Jalen approached DaBaby because they were fans. In a series of now deleted tweets, Craig's cousin recounted what she claimed to be the real events of that night. Jalen and his friend Henry, known by his family and close friends as Spanky, went to the Walmart store after work that day to buy long johns. As they made their way to the men's undergarment section, Jalen and Spanky damn near lost their shit when they caught a glimpse of who they thought was the up-and-coming local rapper, DaBaby. Allegedly, Jalen was an early admirer of DaBaby's music, according to his family. Remember, this altercation happened in 2018, way before he attained national, much less global fame. So if what Jalen's family said were true, he would have been one of DaBaby's earliest fans, and meeting DaBaby at the aisle must have been very exciting for him. However, this feeling of excitement must have immediately turned to fear when DaBaby was much less enthusiastic about meeting them. They were excited, and as they navigated the aisles of the store to buy their wares, he crossed paths with them again. But this time, in spite of their genuine, innocent, and pure excitement to see him up close, Kirk became agitated. After spewing a few words, he assaulted Henry with a punch to the face, and a scuffle ensued. The cousin then went on to explain what really happened during the scuffle and moments that led up to Jalen's death. Jalen attempted to defuse the situation and break up the fight. Kirk's girlfriend punched Jalen in the face. While still entangled with Spanky, Kirk fired a shot from his illegal and unregistered gun as Jalen turned to run. Ballistics and evidence show that Jalen was shot in the backside of his torso while he was trying to flee. Now, when these tweets caught the attention of social media users, many accused her of looking for clout. Some also said that DaBaby may have been telling the truth, and as Jalen's family, it may have been hard for them to admit that their relative was in reality a thief and a gangbanger. However, in April of 2022, almost 4 years after Jalen's death, new evidence started popping up, and this evidence changed everything. See, Rolling Stone was able to obtain a never-before-seen CCTV footage of the fatal altercation. This footage showed different angles of the incident and actually strengthened the story that Jalen's family told the world, that it wasn't self-defense. Jalen was actually a fan. In the newly released footage, clips showed that DaBaby actually attacked Henry first, and when the two were still entangled, Jalen approached and attempted to break off the two. For a while there, it looked like Jalen might have drawn a gun before concealing it again, which caused DaBaby to use his own at Jalen. Now, the video cut away before we could see if Jalen properly pulled out his gun, but everything the video showed added up with the story of Jalen's cousin. However, it also didn't necessarily disprove DaBaby's claims, since no one knows what truly happened before DaBaby threw the first punch. Despite this new footage coming to light, DaBaby still wasn't charged with any murder-related cases, as there wasn't enough evidence to prove anything against him. Now, I'm not saying DaBaby is completely innocent, but I'm not saying he's completely guilty either. We just don't know enough about the situation, and all we have is DaBaby telling one story and Jalen's camp telling another. Either way, while this case didn't do anything to hurt DaBaby's reputation in 2018, quite the opposite in fact, as it helped his career a little bit. Considering how much he's talked about this incident in songs and how much hip-hop loves to glorify these types of situations, the narrative changed in 2022 when DaBaby's reputation was already shaky and his self-defense claims got questioned. And while many didn't believe Jalen's cousin's claims at first, many realized that the fact that DaBaby lost his cool, which led to the altercation, isn't so hard to believe. So anyways, where is DaBaby today? Well, today, DaBaby is still not where he once was. Although he's insanely consistent, he still hasn't come close to making a comeback. Now, this next rapper we're going to talk about is someone who many people have tried to cancel for years, but for some reason finds a way to prevail over his detractors, Eminem. It's easy to see why so many have tried to cancel Eminem, seeing that he's one of the most divisive figures in hip-hop history. Throughout Eminem's career, there have been at least 6 times where the masses tried to cancel him. One of the first attempts to cancel Eminem was done by the US Senate itself. It doesn't really get any bigger than that. See, in 1999, the US government, led by the then president, Bill Clinton, put a spotlight on media that can have a negative effect on children as a response to the tragic Columbine attack that year. Instead of getting to the root of the problem, Clinton blamed video games, movies, and music.
I think after a little time has passed, we need to have a candid assessment about what more we can do to try to prevent these things from happening.
Many artists were named in the so-called battle, and Eminem was of course one of the biggest names mentioned. A year later, a Senate session was held to discuss violence in music, and among those highlights was Eminem's. Lynn Cheney in particular, wife of the vice president at the time, Dick Cheney, had it out for Eminem, calling him a violent misogynist.
He is a violent misogynist. He advocates raping and murdering his mother in one of his songs. He glories in the same song in the idea that he might murder any woman he comes across.
The Senate also fired at the Billboard charts and the MTV Awards for apparently rewarding Eminem despite the despicable content of his lyrics.
The lyrics from Eminem are from an album which is currently at number 3 on the Billboard chart after spending 2 months this summer at number 1. He received 3 awards from MTV last week.
However, all of that seemed to have done nothing. In fact, it seems to have only gotten Eminem more publicity, as his album, The Marshall Mathers, ended up selling over 1.78 million copies in its first week alone, making it one of the fastest selling studio albums of all time. As for Miss Cheney, she became a subject for a lot of Eminem's music, and he's continued to mock her over the years, and has even mentioned her in tracks like Without Me and White America. But aside from the US Senate, another large group that also tried to cancel Eminem early on in his career was the LGBTQ community. This started during the MTV Music Awards in 2000, where Eminem was nominated for several awards, including Best Rap Video, Best Male Video, and Video of the Year. However, prior to the start of the event, members of an activist group for the LGBTQ community protested Eminem outside the event venue. The group wanted to have Eminem removed from the event for his homophobic lyrics.
We are here because Eminem's current lyrics on his Marshall Mathers LP really strongly suggest that young listening audience should go out and express their emotions through violence often aimed at the gay and lesbian community.
Unfortunately for the group, they weren't able to stop Eminem from appearing at the awards. In fact, Eminem gave a very memorable performance of The Real Slim Shady and The Way I Am that night, and went on to win 3 awards, including Video of the Year. So it's safe to say that the protests against Eminem that night did nothing to deter him, as his career only would propel upward after that year. However, his controversies also didn't slow down at all. A few months after the MTV Music Awards, Eminem, alongside Limp Bizkit and Papa Roach, launched the Anger Management Tour in the fall of 2000, which was set to visit states and venues in North America and Europe. And while the tour went off without a hitch in the US, it hit its first roadblock when it reached the Canadian borders. The Anger Management crew was set to hit the cities of Toronto and Montreal. However, in the days leading up to the Canada dates, an activist named Valerie Smith wrote to the Toronto's hate crimes unit to complain about Eminem's hateful music. According to Valerie's letter, Eminem promotes hatred and advocates violence against women in his lyrics, and Valerie's pleas actually got referred to the Ontario's Provincial Attorney General Office, which escalated the matter. From then on, the Attorney General, Jim Flaherty, and Valerie Smith worked closely to keep an eye on Eminem as he was about to perform on his scheduled dates. Jim Flaherty even went to ban Eminem from entering Canada, stating, "I personally don't want anyone coming to Canada who will come here and advocate violence against women." But the Canadian Immigration Department said they couldn't do that. "If all people who made bad music were kept out of Canada, we could have stopped the disco," said Derek Hodgson of the Immigration Department. Valerie, however, didn't advocate for his banning. Instead, she urged that if Eminem was going to play any of his hateful music, he should be arrested. Sending a rapper to prison for hateful lyrics is definitely a bold proposition. If the Attorney General Office believes this material does constitute an infraction in criminal code, they should be proactive and contact his agent and say, "Ontario enforces Section 319 of the Criminal Code, and if he performs that material, he will be in contravention of it and will be arrested," she said. That said, Ontario's Attorney General wasn't able to stop Eminem from entering Canada, and thus the show went on. And you'd think, amidst the threats of incarceration, Eminem wouldn't play some of his more controversial tracks at the time. But this is Eminem we're talking about. During his set in Toronto, M opened with "I'm Back" and followed it up with "Kill You." Then he played "Under the Influence" and played "Shit on You" next. Yeah, he started his set like that and played 4 of his most controversial tracks in a row. M also spoke to the Toronto crowd and told them how sick he was of his critics, many of whom were most likely listening, giving the promise to arrest him if he played any of his controversial tracks.
I'm so sick of every critic and every motherfucking journalist talking shit about my music, and they ain't even the motherfuckers buying my music. Y'all are.
M also acknowledged the threats of arrest against him, which didn't affect his set at all, by the way.
They told me that if I perform "Kill You" tonight, that they was gonna lock me up. Guess what? I already performed it.
Of course, he dedicated a song to his biggest critic in Canada, Valerie Smith, before playing "The Way I Am."
But I dedicate this next motherfucking song to that bitch Valerie Smith.
Despite doing all of that, Eminem didn't get arrested for the event. After the show, he went back to the States a free man. However, that wasn't the only time Eminem had to deal with authorities during his tour. Because as the tour neared the end of its first leg, the artists were set to play in Manchester and London. And while of course there's nothing wrong with an artist playing in those venues, this was Eminem at his absolute peak, and controversies were basically attached to his hip. See, Eminem had this horror themed thing planned for his set where he was gonna wear a tracksuit, a mask, and would carry a chainsaw on stage, and apparently, the cops had a problem with that. "We are not killjoys," said a council spokesman who spoke with The Sun in London. "Our paramount concern is our safety." Despite some valid concerns, M wasn't having it, and here's what he thought.
You have a chainsaw, the chainsaw's going, or you take ecstasy, or you drink, or you say the F word, or stick up your middle finger, or move the crowd, or do any type of show at all, then we will arrest you. Because we are tough London cops. Tough Manchester cops.
The cops did relent though, and allowed Eminem to carry his chainsaw on stage. However, as the show went on, Eminem did his usual pill-popping skit, which, if you're confused, is just a skit he does before he performs the song Purple Pills. This alarmed authorities, as they thought Eminem was swallowing actual pills on stage. We are reviewing tapes from the concert to see whether he took drugs or incited others to take them, a spokeswoman from the British Transport Police told the BBC. During the show, M told the crowd before popping the pill, "My friend Exhibit gave me some E's and said I popped the pill. I told you that there were a bunch of drug addicts. I hope these E's are good shit. If they're not, you'll be carrying my sorry ass home tonight." It was discovered though that Eminem simply swallowed a gum on stage and thus was promptly let go. "We just had a very good natured show," a representative of the British police said after everything was well and done. However, through all of that, Eminem was able to get out unscathed. But sadly, that wouldn't be the end of Eminem's troubles. In fact, his biggest problem so far at this point was still to come. In the early 2000s, a rapper named Benzino, the co-owner of a magazine called The Source, had started a beef with Eminem. See, in the 2000s, Eminem was dominating hip-hop's charts, and Benzino had a problem with this since he didn't like how the media was portraying Eminem as the quote-unquote king of hip-hop, considering he was a white man in a black genre.
And this is when the media goes into kind of overdrive, the mainstream media, and it's like, you know, Eminem is the king of hip hop, you know, he's the greatest to ever do it. You know, they're just, you know, going crazy with, you know, the way they're portraying him. And I think that, you know, rubbed Benzino the wrong way.
Basically, Benzino was afraid that Eminem would do to hip hop what Elvis did to rock and roll.
And I think it had him thinking like, you know, this could be bad for hip hop, you know, that just like Elvis was used to change the trajectory of rock and roll music and cut out black folks.
But Benzino wasn't just complaining to the masses for nothing. What many did not know, including Eminem, was that Benzino had an ace up his sleeve, and in 2023, his plan would come to fruition. That year, he was able to get his hands on some extremely questionable material. According to his magazine, what Benzino actually had was a secret racist tape that Eminem kept hidden since 1993. This tape allegedly contained tracks that had very racist lyrics, and to prove it, Benzino held a press conference where he gathered a room full of journalists and played them some of the tracks of the tape. And to be honest, these tracks were very, very damning.
Hear the music now.
I'll get straight to the point. Black girls are bitch. That's why I'ma tell you, you better pull up your bridges. Cause all that cash is making ass drag from the boyfriend you ganked. Black girls and white girls just don't mix because black girls are dumb and white girls are good.
That track you just heard was allegedly called Foolish Pride. The song was around 5 minutes long and was basically just Eminem disrespecting black women in general. But that wasn't the only racially charged track on the Racist Hour tape. Another song, called So Many Styles, had Eminem outright say the N-word. Yeah, contrary to popular belief, Eminem did say the N-word on record. And before you even ask, is the guy rapping in these tracks even Eminem? Yeah, so throw that question out the window because he pretty much outs himself in the track.
There's so many styles I might get thrown, and here's a place where I like to roam. And all the girls that I like to bone have the big butts. No, they don't, cause I don't like that shit. I just here to make a bigger hit. When I be kicking, the hype is dopest rhyme to say that Eminem is the best MC in all time.
Yeah, Eminem had no way out of that one. Or so you'd think. Because after that press conference that Benzino held, he said that he was going to release the full mixtape for free along with the next issue of his magazine. And of course, when Eminem's Shady Records got wind of Benzino's intentions, they sued the source in a copyright infringement case to prevent the tapes from going public. However, much to the disappointment of Shady Records, the judge actually ruled in favor of the source, and thus, Benzino stayed true to his word, and the full mixtape was released to the public. In response to these tapes, Eminem issued a public apology explaining his thought process while he was making these tracks. In response to the track Foolish Pride, Eminem said, "The tape they played today was something I made out of anger, stupidity, and frustration when I was a teenager. I had just broken up with my girlfriend, who was African American, and I reacted like the angry, stupid kid that I was. I hope people will take it for the foolishness that it was, not for what somebody is trying to make it today." However, while Eminem acknowledged that track, he claims to have never heard nor remember even recording it, which is an odd thing to deny considering he admitted to the other one, and his voice on that track and this track was pretty much the same. He even addressed himself by his name on that track. So was this enough to cancel Eminem? Well, knowing what we know now, no, not at all. A hip-hop website called SOHH.com did a survey a few weeks after the tapes went public, and according to the survey, 50% of hip-hop fans said they have and will continue to support Eminem, while less than 16% of current supporters say they will end their support. This situation will be smaller than a speed bump in the journey of American pop culture and hip-hop subculture, said a radio host of the show, One Mic. Russell Simmons, the co-founder of Def Jam Recordings and one of the most powerful men in hip-hop, also backed Eminem, saying, "He continues not only to be an icon of hip-hop, but also has evolved into a good soldier who gives back money, time, and energy to the community, encouraging this generation of youth to reach their highest aspirations." But as expected, aside from Benzino, there were also others that felt that the backlash towards Eminem's racist moment was lacking. He's one of the few powerful white men to actually come out and say the N-word, the Sony advertising agent, Dambisa Mushka, who then suggested that Eminem should use his platform to fight racism considering how much he's benefited from black culture. His white fans need to know that racism is not okay. Who better to drive the point home than Eminem, who has benefited generously and immensely from the fairness and generosity of African Americans. And to add to the fact that Eminem never really felt the consequences of his careless actions, just a few months after the source made Eminem's racist tape public, Eminem dropped Encore, which was also a commercial and critical hit. So yeah, they didn't really stop Eminem's career like Benzino wanted. Now, some people believe that Eminem being uncancelable is due to the fact that he embodies three personas whenever he performs. There's Marshall Mathers, the person behind the music, the one who talks about his addiction, his rough upbringing, as well as how much he loves his daughters. Then there's Eminem, the rapper who talks about his love for the genre as well as the controversy that comes with it. And finally, there's Slim Shady. Let's talk about his last persona. Slim Shady is a character Eminem introduced with the Slim Shady EP in 1997 and expanded upon the Slim Shady LP in 1999. Now, when Eminem raps as Slim Shady, you can expect him to spew some really outrageous things. So, in tracks such as Bonnie and Clyde, Him, Without Me, and Kill You, he's rapping as Slim Shady, not as Eminem. It sounds silly, I know, but hear me out for a bit. When talking about the creation of his alter ego, Eminem said that he created Slim Shady after becoming a member of D12. Coming out with an alliance was a part of Proof's whole idea. He said, "Let's be a group called D12 and there'll be 6 of us and we'll each have an alias. We'll each be 2 different people. Eminem added that rapping as Shady allowed him to vent his frustrations, which is why some of his most outrageous and controversial tracks came while he rapped as Slim Shady. When I started rapping as Shady as that character, it was a way for me to vent all my frustrations and just blame it on him. If anybody got mad about it, it was him that said it. Now, this doesn't remove any accountability from M, not at all, but it does turn the Slim Shady persona into more of a fictional character than an actual person. See, Slim Shady became somewhat of a caricature of Eminem's angriest side. In a sense, Eminem wasn't being racist, Slim was. Eminem wasn't being homophobic, Slim was. Eminem wasn't being misogynistic, Slim was. You get the point. Is it silly still? Yes, because as much as Eminem claims Slim Shady is just an alter ego, that doesn't make him less accountable. He's still the one writing those rhymes and putting them on records for everyone to hear. However, whenever you hear these debates online about how racist, homophobic, and sexist Eminem can be, you'll often hear his biggest fans say something along the lines of, Slim Shady's the deranged, twisted, and psychotic alter ego that says, this is what I have to say, deal with it. Again, it doesn't excuse the things that Eminem has said over the years, but it does add a bit of context to it. But racism is not the only thing that people have tried to cancel Eminem for. Among Eminem's myriad of controversies, two of his most blatant offenses are his homophobia and misogyny. I mean, after all, these are the two main reasons why his name was brought up when Mrs. Cheney was fighting against violence in his music. And of course, we could also say that these are Slim Shady's controversies and not Eminem's, but for the sake of realism, let's stop pretending these two aren't the same. Ever since Eminem started making music, many of his lyrics featured misogynistic and homophobic lines. He's talked about essaying his own mother. He's also used the F-slur against gay people in his songs, even outright saying he hates them in his track Criminal. Now, whenever Eminem goes on these homophobic and misogynistic tirades in his songs as Slim, the songs always seem to be satirical in nature rather than genuinely serious hate. Most of the time, anyway. Still, that wouldn't stop his haters. As we previously mentioned, the LGBTQ community has been advocating for Eminem's cancellation since the beginning. M, however, has maintained that he doesn't use slurs hatefully. To him, these words were insults that had nothing to do with homosexuality. Those kinds of words, when I came up with battle rapping or whatever, I never equated those words with being gay. It was more like calling someone a bitch or a punk or an asshole, M told Rolling Stone in 2013. Eminem is also very good friends with Elton John, who famously collaborated with him at the 2001 Grammys and kissed him on stage, even though the gay community boycotted him at the time. M has also advocated for gay marriage over the years. I think if two people love each other, then what the hell? I think everyone should have the chance to be equally miserable if they want. M once said about gay marriage. But despite these pro-LGBTQ stances, Eminem never refrained from making homophobic sentiments in his tracks, and not once has he retracted them, nor has he apologized for them until just recently. See, in 2018, Eminem released his 10th studio album called Kamikaze, and in it, there's a track called Fall, where he calls out several hip-hop figures, including Tyler the Creator. In the song, Eminem raps the line, "Tyler create nothing, I see why you called yourself a... It's not just because you lack attention, it's because you worship D12's balls, you sacrilegious." Although the F word was censored in both the clean and explicit versions of the song, Eminem still faced massive backlash for the slur. Now, Eminem is no stranger to backlash. He faced them then, and continues to face it now. However, in a rare moment, even Eminem himself realized that he may have taken things a bit too far when he dissed Tyler.
In my quest to hurt him, I realized that I was hurting a lot of other people by saying it.
He also admitted that leaving the line on the track didn't feel right.
One of the things that I kept going back to going, I don't feel right with this.
This was definitely a surprising thing coming from Eminem, who rarely backpedals on his statements and advocacy. Either way, things seem to be changing for Eminem. Even his latest album, The Death of Slim Shady, which saw the return of Eminem's unhinged persona, which was very tame compared to his earliest works. This may be a sign that Eminem is turning over a new leaf, or maybe the numerous attempts to cancel him just wore him down. Now, let's shift our discussion to one of the most consequential rappers of this generation. And this time, he was canceled not because of his lyrics and his statements, but rather his habit of inciting violence, Travis Scott. Travis Scott is one of the most controversial rappers of the past decade. I mean, who can forget the infamous AstroWorld Tragedy? But we'll get to that in a second, because even way before AstroWorld, Travis Scott has already shown the world his tendencies for causing massive controversies during his live performances and how harmful these habits can get. Travis Scott's bouts against cancel culture all started in 2015 when he performed at Houston's House of Blues. During that gig, Travis suddenly turned his attention on a couple of fans. The issue with this was that Scott singled out those specific fans not because they were causing any trouble. No, the issue for Scott was that the fans were presumably members of the gay community. Unfortunately for these fans, after seeing them, Travis couldn't hold back his homophobia and decided to harass them. Man, that must suck.
I ain't cool with none of you who just sitting here looking like a bunch of queers. flame shirt, motherfucker. You better act like it. I'm gonna rip it off your fucking back.
Imagine paying to see one of your favorite artists only to get singled out and cussed out like that because of your identity. As you can expect, when the videos of the tantrum circulated online, Travis Scott faced backlash from social media users, and rightfully so. Of course, in response to the heat and to fix his public image, he released a series of now deleted tweets apologizing to his fans in the LGBTQ community. At my shows, I get a little turned up. Sorry for that, but never will I ever disrespect that community, Travis said in one tweet. He also chalked up his rant to him being overly excited. I don't want you to think of me as a spaz, though when I get excited, I tend to say the first thing on my mind out loud. I mean, he basically said the first thing on his mind was to harass his fans. He then defended himself by saying no one is perfect. I've been working on that as a person, takes time, but we all ain't perfect. But having some homophobic tendencies isn't the only backlash that Scott faced from cancel culture. See, Travis Scott has a patented tendency of inciting riot in his crowds, who he calls his ragers. For every performance Travis Scott has, you can expect there to be some type of chaos, whether it be fans storming on stage, jumping fences, or just breaking stuff. This of course has caused some serious problems, all of which have culminated in his career being damaged one way or the other. One instance of this was in 2015, when he literally incited a riot during that year's Lollapalooza festival in Chicago.
We want rage! Yeah. 1, 2, 3!
During Scott's set, the crowd was super hyped up and things were already getting rowdy. The problem was that, despite him seeing how chaotic and dangerous things were getting, Scott, instead of calming the crowd down, encouraged them to get past security, jump the barricades, and storm the stage.
Yeah! We want rage! We want rage! We want rage!
As you can expect, Scott's performance had to be cut short after just 5 minutes because so many ragers stormed the stage. After this, Scott was taken into police custody for inciting a riot and was sentenced to 1 year of court supervision. But despite seeing how dangerous it got, it never seemed to concern Scott. Just 2 years later, he did the exact same thing during the Walmart, Arkansas Music Pavilion event. During the performance, Scott commanded his ragers to rush to the stage and ignore the safety protocols set by security. As a result, several people were injured, including a security guard and a police officer. It's one thing to want a very hyped concert, which artist doesn't want that, but it's completely different when the artist is just outright reckless and irresponsible, as it can lead to some serious consequences, as we will see in the following segment. Now, let's talk about one of the worst things Travis Scott has ever been involved with, the AstroWorld Festival. So, many things about the tragedy that occurred in this event could have been avoided, and Travis himself could have shown more empathy and urgency when the whole thing went down, but due to a lack of preparation and Travis Scott's apathy, 10 people died, 25 people were hospitalized, and over 300 people were left with injuries. With the benefit of hindsight, it's easy to spot the many signs that hinted at the tragedy that would ensue, such as the ratio of guests to staff being problematic from the get-go. Although Travis shouldn't take all the blame for this, as it is the organizers' fault as well. However, another glaring problem that the AstroWorld Festival had was that its main artist, Travis Scott himself, had a history of inciting riots at events. And what's worse was that, apparently, the security guards hired at the event weren't screened or checked. They underwent no training or anything, according to one security guard who worked at the festival. We just went to work. Another problem was that there was just too many people at the festival. On top of the estimated 50,000 people who bought tickets for the event, there were also a couple of thousand people who stormed the gates and forced their way inside, a habit that Scott has encouraged from his fans in the past. Throughout the day of the festival, even before Travis took the stage, several things already happened that were major causes of concern. Several checkpoints and entrances got broken into after fans searched through them, and some entrances were even pried open with box cutters. Pull tons over the rail unconscious. There's a panic in people's eyes. This could not get worse quickly. I know they'll try to fight through it, but I want it on the record that I didn't advise this to continue. Someone's gonna end up dead. This was a text message a security contract worker sent one of the event's security directors on the night of the event, emphasizing just how terrible things were from the ground. However, things really took a turn for the worse when Travis Scott eventually took to the stage at around 9 p.m. At this point, all hell had already broken loose. The crowd was pushing forward, trying to get as close as they could to the stage, which caused a crowd crush and suffocated those who unfortunately got caught in the wave of people. It was like hell, said one of the concert attendees as he tried to explain what it was like being in the crowd. Everyone was just stuck in the back, trying to rush to the front. Another concert goer also shared how terrible the experience was for them. People were literally grabbing and punching at my body, trying to get up from the ground. I was fighting for my life. There's no way out. And this is where people really pointed the blame on Travis Scott. Because while you can excuse factors such as the crowd to staff ratio, the venue not being able to accommodate the tens of thousands of fans, and the incompetent security staff, what you cannot excuse is the fact that Travis Scott literally watched the crowd suffer and simply move forward with his show. In fact, when things really got worse and several people were starting to pass out, Many of those in the crowd were yelling to stop the show so they could get help.
Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show!
Several people also yelled at Travis directly, asking him for help. And I don't know if he couldn't hear them because he was just smiling while several voices were yelling at him, begging for help. If that wasn't enough, there were also people who climbed on a camera platform to urge the cameraman to ask for help since someone had apparently already died.
That's okay with me real quick. Take me, let's do it.
And as I've said, this is the reason that people have made Travis accountable for the many unfortunate casualties. Travis obviously knew something wasn't right because he stopped the show several times to check his crowd. There was even that time when an ambulance showed up to pick someone up who had lost their consciousness or already lost their life. But instead of pausing the show for a bit to make sure the ambulance could get to whoever it needed to get to, Travis did this instead.
All that. 2 hands to the sky. 2 hands to the sky. 2 hands up, y'all. 2 hands up. Y'all know what y'all came to do. Chase me, let's go. I wanna make this motherfucking ground shake, goddammit.
And of course, who can forget this clip of Travis singing while a passed out fan was being dragged out by the security and other concert goers. Now, should Travis have stopped the concert altogether? No, I don't think that would have made things better. In fact, it would have made things worse. Even the police chief in Houston acknowledged that the show should have kept going. You cannot just close when you got 50,000 and over 50,000 individuals, he said. We have to worry about riots, when you have a group that's that young. However, there's a much better way of dealing with something like this. Unlike Travis, who didn't even make sure the ambulance was able to tend to those who needed help, there have been several instances in other concerts where the artist temporarily pauses the show just to make sure someone in the crowd who needed help got the help they needed.
Hold up. Yo. We got a little problem up here.
Pick him up right
Everybody
now.
up. Sorry, you guys. We gotta look out for safety first, for real. Nobody gets hurt.
Even someone younger than Travis knew better.
Stop for a second, please. Can we get some help back there?
At the end of the night, 8 people died, ranging in age from 14 to 27. 2 more people died in the hospital later on, one of whom was only 9. The event was the deadliest event in hip-hop history, and one of the deadliest music festivals ever in terms of crowd crush casualties. A few hours after the festival ended, Travis Scott took to Twitter to say how absolutely devastated he was by the whole thing. I'm absolutely devastated by whatever took place last night. My prayers go out to families and those impacted by what happened at AstroWorld Festival. Houston PD has my total support as they continue to look into the tragic loss of life. I am committed to working together with the Houston community to heal and support the families in need. As you can imagine, no one appreciated this apology, with some calling this tweet a half-assed, insincere, PR fabricated response. Aside from the tweet, Travis also released an apology video, perhaps after realizing how awful his tweet apology was. However, instead of making things better, the video only made the entire situation for him and everyone involved in this tragedy much worse.
I just want to send out prayers to the ones that was lost last night. We're actually working right now to identify the families so we can help assist them through this tough time.
Travis also defended himself in the video by saying he stopped the show whenever someone needed help, which was kind of contrary to how he acted when he told the crowd to make the ground shake while an ambulance was there trying to help people. Anyways, Scott continued his apology.
And anytime I can make out, anything that's going on, I stop the show and, help them get the help they need, I could just never imagine the severity of the situation.
Travis then urged everyone to continue praying for his victims while saying how devastated he was while rubbing his forehead and constantly closing his eyes like he was nursing a headache because of how much of a hassle this entire situation was for him.
Everybody continue to just keep your prayers. I'm honestly just devastated, and I could never imagine anything like this just happening. I'm gonna do everything I can to keep you guys updated.
Yeah, that apology video got clowned on a lot by everyone because of how insincere Travis seemed through the entire thing, like it was a burden for him to have to do that. As you can imagine, the backlash following the event was massive. There were calls for lawsuits against Travis Scott, Live Nation Entertainment, and ASM, the venue manager, among others, especially by the 10 families of the 10 people who had passed away during the event. But after this tragic incident, more and more details behind the festival suddenly emerged, and it painted a much darker and much more disturbing picture about AstroWorld. Apparently, several people who were involved in the planning of the event came forward to say that the organizers actually foresaw the crowding issues. I feel like there's no way we're gonna fit 50k people in front of that stage, someone wrote to the operations director. When the matter was brought to court, a document also surfaced that proved organizers mistook the fire safety code. They thought that the venue allowed 1 person per 5 square feet, when the actual number was 7 square feet. This led to the venue catering to over 50,000 people, even though it's only meant for 34,500 people. We are absolutely screwed when the sun goes down, one organizer wrote about the morning crowd during the event, which included unticketed individuals who crashed the venue. But in the aftermath of this tragedy, Travis Scott was eventually absolved of any responsibility and was dropped from any litigation involving the event.
Our job is narrow. It's to determine if this tragedy, this absolute disastrous, horrific event involved criminal activity by anyone, at the top, to the bottom, or in between.
And after much deliberation by a grand jury, they decided that Scott would not face any criminal charge for the AstroWorld event. Scott's representative had this to say regarding the matter. Today's decision by the Harris County District Attorney confirms what we have known all along, that Travis Scott is not responsible for the AstroWorld tragedy. While waiting patiently for the District Attorney's decision to not file charges, Travis Scott has been inaccurately and wrongly singled out, despite stopping the show 3 separate times and being unaware of the events as they were unfolding. This of course did not sit well with the plaintiffs, who felt like justice was not granted with Scott being absolved. A representative of the hundreds of attendees of the event who filed a civil lawsuit told the New York Times in response to Scott's dismissal, "While we are incredibly disappointed that Mr. Travis Scott will not be indicted on charges stemming from the senseless tragedies and chaos that occurred at AstroWorld, we are undeterred and will be fighting every day on behalf of the hundreds of injury victims who simply intended to attend a concert for a night of fun to ensure responsible parties are held accountable in the ongoing pursuit of justice." On the other hand, Live Nation ended up settling almost all the wrongful death suits that stemmed from the festival. It took them 3 years to reach a settlement, and they only settled 9 out of 10 wrongful death lawsuits that they were hit with following that terrible event. And do you know which one they didn't settle and chose to take to trial? The lawsuit from the family of Ezra Blount, the 9-year-old victim of the festival. But of course, what did Travis really think about the situation? Well, Travis's first interview following the AstroWorld tragedy was with GQ magazine. And during this interview, he talked about how overly devastated he still felt about the whole thing. "I always think about it. Those fans were like my family, you know? I love my fans the utmost," Travis said. However, this is why many people still pointed to Scott being insincere. Because later on in the interview, he talked about his most recent track at the time, My Eyes, which referenced the AstroWorld tragedy. The track had the lyrics, "I replay them nights, and right by my side, all I see is a sea of people that ride with me. If they just knew what Scotty would do to jump off the stage and save him a child." However, this would be yet another Travis Scott public response that would end in disaster. You see, because rather than viewing this as sincere, as many fans saw this as Travis Scott using a tragedy to promote his own song. The song is emotional, and the verse meant a lot to me, Travis told the magazine. He also wanted to let people know that throughout the whole thing, he told himself he was going through something terrible. To know I have pain too. I have concerns, things that I think about, and the things I see on a day-to-day basis. I think about them. And every day I want to find a change in these things, to make things better, make myself better. Travis also sat down with Charlamagne the God a few weeks after the AstroWorld event. In the interview, Travis was given the chance to explain things from his point of view more quote-unquote candidly. Starting off, Charlamagne asked Travis how he's been coping with the aftermath of everything emotionally, and Travis replied,
"I've been just in a room for a while, you know, a lot of thoughts." And
this prompted Charlamagne to ask Travis about the time he got spotted golfing with Michael Jordan, Mark Wahlberg, and others just a few weeks after the AstroWorld event.
Yeah, you said you was in the room, but then people saw you at the golf course.
Yeah,
with Michael Jordan and Mark Wahlberg. What was that?
It was just Thanksgiving. You know, and they were there. You know, just good people to have around in the community.
That was easy bait for Charlamagne there, and Travis bit onto it like a chump. Throughout the whole interview, Travis kept saying how bad he felt and how he was always thinking about his fans. But he also removed himself of any responsibility by arguing that he nor his event was a problem here.
End of the day, I just don't think, you know, a Travis Scott show or, you know, an AstroWorld show, you know, wasn't the bottom line factor of what happened here, you know? And I think we just got to figure out what that was, what happened.
And he also maintained that he never realized anything was going wrong while he was performing.
Did you hear any of those screams?
Nah, man. And you know, it's so crazy because I'm that artist too. Like, you know, anytime you can hear something like that, you want to stop the show. You want to make sure, you know, fans get the proper attention they need, you know?
So yeah, if you thought this interview would be anything but an attempt for him to clear his name, you'd be sorely disappointed. But that wasn't all for Travis Scott. Now, aside from Travis's AstroWorld controversy and everything else we've talked about, he's also done a lot more to further stain his reputation. And while you'd think he'd lay low following that tragedy, Scott had a different idea. Despite the serious consequences from his previous acts, Travis just couldn't get away from controversies and legal troubles. For example, the time when Travis got in trouble for allegedly trespassing on a boat while being drunk. At around midnight on June 20th, the Miami police got a call regarding a disturbance on a yacht in Miami Beach. When they got there, they found Scott standing on the dock yelling at some passengers.
Everyone put their hands on their head. Everybody put their hands on their head. Everybody put their hands on their head. Come here. You have a firearm on you? Sir. Yo. Come here. Buddy, do you have a firearm on you? You have a firearm on you. You have a firearm on you. Nobody has a firearm. Only person has a firearm is the lady. Come here.
When asked what Scott was doing there, he said that he wasn't trespassing because he was renting the boat.
I rented this boat. The owners came on this boat. They kicked down on my door at 12 o'clock. I don't know what's going on. Ask them.
They knocked on. I don't understand what's going on. There was no fighting involved.
No fighting involved.
If that was the case, then it seemed like Travis had exceeded the hours he was meant to be on the boat, which is why the owners wanted him off, so his presence there still constituted trespassing. According to the cop who was speaking with Travis, he sensed a strong smell of alcohol coming from the defendant's breath. Scott left the scene, but he came back later and passed officers who ordered him to stop. When the rapper refused to stop walking, after the officers kept warning him, they had no choice but to take Travis into custody.
Said if I didn't stop walking, if I stopped walking.
Fortunately for Travis, he was able to get out scot-free because just a few months later, he was spotted in Paris just in time for the Paris Olympics. However, and as you can expect by now, Travis would also run into some trouble there too. Allegedly, Travis lost his cool while arguing with a security guard, so he gave him the beats, prompting authorities to get involved.
Police arrested the Houston native for violence against a security guard who worked for a hotel. TMZ reports the hotel security guard intervened when Travis Scott was fighting with his personal bodyguard, who felt he was slacking on the job.
One of Scott's representatives released a statement following his arrest, saying, "We are in direct communication with local policing authorities to swiftly resolve this matter and will provide updates when appropriate." Luckily for Scott, the security guard didn't file any charges and he was let go immediately. And while you would think that getting in trouble overseas would put an end to Travis Scott's problematic behavior, you'd be wrong. Because just as recent as late 2023, Travis would be involved in another controversy. During that year, Travis announced the first tour he launched post-AstroWorld. This tour, which he dubbed the Utopia Circus Maximus Tour, was expectedly met with mixed reactions. The fact was that although Scott wasn't charged with the casualties of AstroWorld, he was still more or less at fault for inciting the chaos and unruly behavior from his ragers, and for cultivating a culture of dangerous live shows. Hence, when Travis announced his tour, many were understandably worried to attend his concerts, while some have urged Travis and his organizers to prioritize safety this time around. I definitely think we should add safety precautions, but I'm not sure if he will. I really think that was very badly planned, one fan said. But other than the negative reputation of Scott's concerts, many at the time also wanted to distance themselves from Travis Scott, given his association with Kanye West, who was very controversial at the time. However, despite these reservations, Scott's tour ended up garnering over 1 million attendees and over 154 million in sales. So I guess his fans were quick to forgive him for the AstroWorld situation, or just believe he had nothing to do with that at all, because with those kinds of numbers, it's safe to assume that Travis Scott is far from cancelled. Last on our list of artists is someone who recently just got cancelled, Tory Lanez. Throughout Tory's career, he was able to build a strong fan base who followed his every move, dominating the charts from 2016 to 2020 with hits such as Say It, Love, and Talk to Me. At the time, it seemed like Tory was at the top of his game. However, all of this changed after one tragic incident that happened on July 12th of 2020. During that fateful night, Kylie Jenner held a pool party. Of course, this party included some of the most famous people in Hollywood, one of which was Megan Thee Stallion, who also invited her friend Kelsey Nicole to his party. And unknown to Megan, Kelsey also brought Tory. Now, the party went on as usual, but later on, an argument allegedly ensued between an inebriated Tory and Kelsey. As you can imagine, this may have dampened the party, so either they left on their own accord or Kylie threw them out of her party. And since Megan brought Kelsey and Tory, the three left the party together, all of whom were presumably inebriated at this point. All three got into one vehicle as they left the party, where the argument apparently continued. At this point, details got very hazy, but the general consensus was that Tory, Megan, and Kelsey got even more heated inside the vehicle. It got so bad that Megan wanted to get out of the vehicle. And this is where everything went from a drunken argument to a dangerous affair, because apparently when Megan got out of the vehicle, Tory shot her as he told her to walk away.
All I hear is this man screaming, he said, dance, and he started shooting, and I'm just like, oh my God. If I take the wrong step, I don't know if he can shoot something that's like super important.
Megan, of course, feared for her life. Not only did Tory allegedly shoot her on the foot, he also mocked her by telling her to dance to evade the bullets.
I don't know if he could shoot me and kill me. Like,
were you afraid for your life at that time?
I was really scared because I had never been shot at before.
But things got complicated at that point, because despite the harrowing incident, it wasn't what Megan first reported to the police. See, when the authorities questioned her about the alleged shooting, Megan initially told the cops that she had cut her feet on glass. However, contradicting statements reported by TMZ argued that according to Megan, she felt intimidated as an alleged domestic violence victim. Megan even said that the reason she didn't immediately admit that she got shot was because she was afraid of what the police would do.
I'm scared. All this shit going on with the police is up for anything. The police was literally killing black people for no motherfucking reason.
You could just imagine what was going through Megan's mind at that moment, all while her feet were bleeding.
Soon as the police tell us all get out the motherfucking car, the police is really aggressive. You think I'm about to tell the police that us black people, got a gun in the car?
Later on though, the doctors found what looked like bullet fragments in Megan's foot, which eventually made her admit that she was indeed shot at. This led to the arrest of Tory Lanez that night.
Rapper Tory Lanez has been charged with shooting artist Megan Thee Stallion during an argument. The DA's office says Lanez, whose legal name is Daystar Peterson, shot Megan's feet during an argument in the Hollywood Hills July 12th.
Now, at this point, many still were questioning whether Tory really shot at Megan, but all doubts would be silenced with the text message found on Kelsey's phone.
In text messages obtained by CBS News, Kelsey Harris, the other woman in the car, texted Megan's security guard saying, "Help, Tory shot Meg."
In the message thread, Kelsey's text could be seen saying, "Help, Tory shot Meg," which is pretty self-explanatory. And with the evidence stacked against him, Tory Lanez simply maintained his innocence throughout all this. However, to the surprise of fans, Tory didn't say anything about the case, about Megan, or about not shooting her that night. I mean, a lot of people, especially his fans, were beginning to wonder what really happened that night that could lead him to shoot Megan. Well, apparently a gag order was placed on Tory, which restricted him from saying anything about the case, as well as talking about Megan publicly. Interestingly enough, the same order wasn't placed on Megan, which is why she was able to talk about the case in interviews and live streams freely. To Tory's fans, this was highly unfair as it gave Megan control of the public narrative, while Tory just sat there and watched his career burn down before his eyes. So, instead of talking about Megan or the case, Tory just kept making music. Incidentally, the more Megan talked about the case publicly, the quieter Tory got. And the quieter Tory was about the incident, the louder his supporters became. I mean, if Tory wasn't going to say anything, his fans thought they were going to do the talking for him. People started looking more into his story, and they realized Megan's stories had a lot of inconsistencies. Now, for you to understand where these inconsistencies came from, let's take a few steps back. See, during the quarantine of 2020, we all remember that, right? Tory hosted Quarantine Radio, and since Tory was at the height of his career at the time, everyone wanted to be on Quarantine Radio. Throughout the run of Tory's show, he was able to bring on guests from the likes of DMX, Swizz Beatz, Alicia Keys, and Tyga, to Justin Bieber, Drake, and T-Pain. Everyone wanted to spend time with Tory, and guess what? One of those who hopped on Quarantine Radio was an up-and-coming female artist named Megan Thee Stallion.
Official shot o'clock. Live right here on Quarantine Radio. Quarantine. This has just turned into Quarantine Radio in about 5 seconds. Quarantine.
So we acting so loud.
The chemistry between Megan and Tory was undeniable during that episode, and some even noticed that they were flirting with each other. And this is where Tory's fans' investigation found a hole in Megan's story. As it turned out, the two did more than just flirt. They actually were, engaging in certain activities. Of course, Megan denied being involved with Tory in this way, but that was just the beginning.
Did you have an intimate relationship with him?
Like
Yeah. Megan, did you have a relationship with Tory Lanez? Yes, that's my question.
I didn't have a relationship with Tory.
She later retracted the statement during a court proceeding and finally admitted to having been involved in a sexual relationship with Tory. Asked to why she denied this in the first place, she said, "Because it's disgusting at this point. How could I share my body with someone who could do this to me?" Now, why is this relevant to the story at all? Well, it very much is, because it provides context as to why the three argued to begin that night. You see, before Tory and Megan got involved, Tory was already seeing Kelsey Nicole, who was supposed to be Megan's best friend. As you can imagine, Kelsey must have taken it incredibly hard when she found out that her man had been sleeping with her best friend behind her back. And according to Kelsey, she found out about everything during that infamous night.
So yeah, it did end up coming out that night that she had been betraying me or whatever. And
Megan tells a different story about this though, because according to her, when she took the stand at court, Kelsey and Tory weren't in a relationship. Kelsey just had a crush on Tory, because I knew Kelsey had a crush on Tory. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, and I didn't want her to know that I had dealt with him in any kind of way. So he knew I didn't want her to know that. I didn't want anyone to know, Megan told the court. So one of them was lying. Either Kelsey was lying about being in a relationship with Tory, or Megan was lying about going behind her best friend's back. Megan also claimed that she had nothing to do with the argument that happened that night. She claimed the argument was mainly between Tory and Kelsey.
At that point, the argument wasn't even with me. Like, the argument was with the two people in the backseat.
But of course, Kelsey had contradicting accounts about the incident, which Kelsey told through a diss track. According to her, Megan got angry at her, and the argument was mainly between the two of them. It's a shame we're here today. Truth be told, it's because you couldn't control your little feelings. Look what is costing you. After that night, Kelsey and Megan never spoke again.
believe it or not, that was my last time ever seeing her.
Really?
And it's crazy.
So we can pretty much establish that it was Kelsey and Megan who fought that night, not Kelsey and Tory, and perhaps Tory just got caught in the middle of an argument. This begs the question, if Kelsey and Megan were the ones fighting, why would Tory shoot Megan, and with such malicious intent at that? Remember, Megan said not only did Tory shoot her, he also told her to dance. Well, as if this case couldn't get any crazier, it does. Because apparently, there were pieces of evidence that suggested that it may have been Kelsey who shot Megan, not Tory. According to tests done by court, gunpowder residue was found on Kelsey's hand, which may indicate that she was the one who shot Megan. However, it should be noted that gunpowder residue can travel in small spaces, in vehicles, for example. And gunpowder residue was found both on Kelsey's and Tory's hands. This means that the shooter could have been either one of them. However, in a surprising turn of events, when Kelsey testified in court, she claimed that she didn't see Lanez with a gun, nor did she see him shoot Megan, which is a wild thing for her to claim because of the text message she sent to Megan's security that night. Not only that, she also changed her tune and said it was Megan who fought Tory in the car. I can't remember what he was telling her, but they started hitting each other with their careers as artists. And if I got confusing for you, then I'll give you a quick rundown. According to the case, either Kelsey shot Megan or Tory shot Megan, or things got so heated that the gun accidentally went off. Whatever the case may be, the only sure thing was that Megan was shot in the foot. Either Kelsey lied about not seeing Tory shoot Megan, or Megan lied about Tory shooting her, or Tory lied.
Because there's two courts. There's a court of law, but there's a court of public opinion.
Now, as you can imagine, this whole incident made everyone turn on Tory immediately. Although he wasn't officially convicted at the time, the public had already made up their minds and saw him as a monster who shot not just a woman, but one of the biggest female hip-hop artists of the time. In Tory's own words,
in the court of public opinion, why would you do things that would further slow me down from getting money and doing things without even knowing a truth to anything? Without even a lick of evidence.
So not only did Tory receive a massive backlash from the general audience, he was already blackballed by his own peers, which he called them out for.
A couple of people definitely hurt me for sure. I'm a human being. That cut me deep to the bone.
Especially since Tory wasn't proven guilty yet.
It was one of those points where it was just like, everyone's pummeling me, everyone's coming at me.
Tory even admitted how betrayed he felt that those who approached him to be on his quarantine radio show before all this happened immediately dropped him when things turned around.
So I will never lie about that. I'm still a human being. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I was all peaches and dandy through the whole thing. Nah, I'm a human being with feelings and emotions, bro. That shit hurt. You know what I'm saying?
But I guess you could just say he was naive. Of course, with the severity of the situation, Tory's music career also got hurt in the process. His sales numbers significantly dropped following the shooting controversy, and even though many of his fans still stood by his side and listened to his music, Tory believed that the industry at large was blackballing him.
My music right now, the platforms got it in a way where when you look at the homepage of these platforms, you can't even find my music. You can't find it nowhere. It's as if I never even dropped nothing.
To add salt to the wound, Spotify also took down Tory's mixtapes from the platform. Tory addressed this incident via Twitter, saying, "So they took that loner capsule off Spotify this morning for a reason I don't know. Sadly, even though Tory's tracks were brought back after they were removed, what this did was effectively remove every single one of Tory's tracks from playlists, both curated and privately made. After a few hours, they put it back. Now the capsule is just not in a lot of my fans' library anymore. so I apologize if you have to re-download. I just clearly can't catch a break. Surprisingly, many still paid attention to his music. The album that he released right after the controversy, Daystar, debuted at number 10 on the Billboard US charts and sold 36,000 units first week. And despite this being Tory's lowest sales numbers yet, considering the controversy with Megan Thee Stallion, it was still an impressive feat, showing just how cemented his career was at this point. But despite the accomplishments the album achieved in a short time, the importance of Daystar was that it was his response to the allegations against him. However, the problem with this was writing and releasing Daystar went against the gag order that was first placed on Tory. The album was also incredibly controversial, as some critics saw it as his attempt to gaslight his fans into siding with him. In response, Tory said he didn't care about that. He was simply creating something genuine. When I do something nice, it's genuinely out of the love of my heart and the pain I feel for people in need. I don't care about repairing an image that people tried to smear and couldn't ... All I can do is play my part, and I'm proud of the part I play. Unfortunately for Tory, his detractors and haters were winning. His numbers kept declining. In fact, his next album after Daystar, Alone at Prom, only sold 17,000 in its first week, and the next one, Sorry for What, sold 25,000.
It hurt my heart when I put out albums like Alone at Prom, and the first week they only do 17K.
So those who believe Tory was guilty, from Megan supporters to digital music platforms, did their best to deplatform him and kill off his music career, and in a way, they were successful. Tory's career was never the same after that incident. However, things would really take a turn for the worse for Tory when his case got finalized in court. But this is where things get even sadder for Tory, because what a lot of people seem to forget was that there were 4 people in the vehicle that night. The 4th person in that vehicle was Tory's driver, Jaquan Smith. In fact, Smith actually made a statement before the court that could have contextualized the events of the night better. So why didn't he? Because the court didn't allow him to. The state court said they didn't call Smith because they know how the driver would testify and chose not to call him. In other words, the court thought the driver would be biased and put the gun in Kelsey's hands. Whatever the case, the court obviously already leaned towards Tory being guilty, and sadly, Tory lost.
Meanwhile, musician Tory Lanez, convicted of shooting rapper Megan Thee Stallion, sentenced to 10 years in prison.
On August 8th, 2023, Tory Lanez was found guilty of all 3 charges the prosecutors handed against him, namely assault with a firearm, illegal possession of a firearm, and negligent discharge of a gun for shooting a victim. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Although Tory pleaded not guilty to all charges, he apologized for his actions and took full responsibility for the after the judge handed down the sentence. If I could change it, I would, but I can't. Everything I did that night, I take full responsibility. I truly am just trying to be a better person, he told the court. Judge Hereford said handing down the sentence was difficult to reconcile. Sometimes good people do bad things, Hereford said. Actions have consequences, and there are no winners in this case. The deputy district attorney, Alex Bott, on the other hand, was less kind towards Lanez. Not only did the defendant do the heinous act of shooting her, he then subjected her to 2.5 years of hell. So the prosecutors gave Tory a hefty sentence because not only did he allegedly shoot Megan, but he also launched a campaign to humiliate and re-traumatize the victim, and weaponize misinformation to twist the public's opinion against Megan. A few months after the incident, Megan's lawyer told Variety, "We have been made aware of manipulated text messages and invented email accounts that have been disseminated to the media in calculated attempts to peddle a false narrative about the events that occurred on July the 12th. A smear campaign can't change the truth." This is a claim Tory's team vehemently denied. One of his legal representatives said that the only commentary that reflects the topic was the client's Daystar album. They also said they would assist in the investigation regarding these false text messages and emails. Now, it was never publicly revealed whether the smear campaigns were true, but they must have been somewhat because they were used in Tory's sentencing. Tory's legal team, on the other hand, sought a shorter sentence and even argued for probation over prison time. They claimed Tory Lanez alcohol abuse, anxiety disorder, and PTSD from the unexpected death of his mother when he was 11 was the cause of this issue.
Tory Lanez's attorneys were asking for probation and substance abuse help, saying that alcohol played a large role in this case.
The prosecutors, however, were skeptical of these claims and didn't take them into account since they were never presented throughout the trial. Alex Bott, however, outright rejected these claims, saying, "This case has nothing to do with mental illness. He shot Megan because she bruised his ego." He also said that the shooting was an act of misogyny towards Megan, a sentiment many critics agreed with. And in the months leading up to the sentencing, Megan's attorneys advocated that Megan has remained truthful throughout the whole thing and that she would have never subjected herself to public abuse if she wasn't telling the truth. Why would she lie? She's been subjected to a stream of hate. For what? For coming forward as a victim of domestic violence? Tory's defense attorney clapped back, giving an explanation as to why Megan would lie. According to him, being victimized by Lanez was a better public story than the embarrassing, potentially career-damaging truth that she was shot by her best friend, not Lanez, in a jealous dispute over him. He also despised Megan's lawyer's notion that Tory had made Megan's life a living hell in the past 2.5 years, at the point when in reality, it was Tory's life that had got turned upside down. It has been so bad for her, he said mockingly. She won the Grammys. She's had #1s on the Billboard charts. You know who it's been bad for? That man right there, while pointing at Lanez. He hasn't been able to work. He had to go through this with his family for 2.5 years. But his arguments weren't enough to sway the court's decision. Obviously, given what Tory's sentence ended up being, as of today, Tory Lanez is sitting at California Correctional Institute, a supermax state prison located in California. And just in case you forgot, he was given 10 years. Still, even after the sentence was passed down and Tory got sent to prison, there were those who stood behind Tory, believing that there was an injustice and the opinions were swayed due to the social and political climate. One of those individuals was Drake, who infamously released a track in 2022 that took shots at Megan and outright called her a liar. In the track called Circo Loco, Drake wrote, "This bitch lying about getting shots, but she's still a stallion. She don't even get the joke, but she's still smiling." Megan didn't let this pass though. In response to the track, she tweeted, "Stop using my shit for clout. Since when is it cool to joke about women getting shit? You guys, especially rap guys, are lame. Ready to boycott about shoes and clothes, but dogpile on a black woman when she say one of y'all homeboys abused her." And Drake was consistent with his support for Tory, because just in February of 2024, Drake uploaded an Instagram story of a picture of him and Tory with the caption, 3U, which is slang for free you, with the 3 representing an open handcuff. Now, what did Tory think of all this? Well, even after his conviction, Tory has continued to maintain his innocence. He claims that he's been wrongfully convicted, and he said that when he took the responsibility for his actions at court, he wasn't apologizing for shooting Megan. He merely took responsibility for all the verbal and intimate moments that he shared with her. A few days after the sentence was passed, Tory's Instagram page released a statement sharing what he thought of the sentencing. He wrote, "I've never let a hard time intimidate me. I will never let no jail time eliminate me. Regardless of how they try to spin my words, I have always maintained my innocence and I always will. This week in court, I took my responsibility for all verbal and intimate moments that I shared with parties involved. That's it." Tory also refused to apologize for shooting Megan, as he insisted that he never did that. "In no way, shape, or form am I apologizing for the charges that I've been wrongfully convicted of. I remain on the stance that I refuse to apologize for something that I did not do." Having said that though, the fight is over for Tory. Not only was he effectively cancelled, he faced the legal consequences of what he did during that night. Despite Tory continuing to record and release tracks while in prison, he'll never taste true freedom again until 2033.